specialist for southern states. That's Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania. Occasionally I do dabble in other states. I'm also the accessibility lead. All right, so what that means is I am in charge of accessibility and learning support and those kinds of things. Oh, my transcript's on there. I'm just going to turn that off. I am in charge of leading that and running that. So I do that at higher ed. I do it in K to 12. I also do it in TAFE. And I support institutions and I support individual teachers to get the most out of technology to support those students that need a little bit of extra support. I fell into this role, to be honest. My boss came to me some years ago and he said, why don't you make a workshop on accessibility? And I was like, okay, you know, what are we going to talk about? Wheelchair ramps, handlebars in toilets? I don't know. And then, you know, 4.5 years later, here I am. And I really love what I do. And I spend a lot of my time in my role doing this because it resonates really strongly with teachers and with schools. And it's also, you know, no child left behind kind of thing. I am a former educator. So I come from 20-something years. I need to work that out, actually. I think it's 22 years in education. 16 years of those were in schools. And I've been doing what I do with Microsoft for about 4.5 years. So I'm not a techie. All right. The other thing, too, is if you have technical issues today, I'm in Melbourne. You're in wherever you are. I'm not going to be able to help you. All right. So reach out to someone else. Because it's just impossible to do, as you can imagine, with a group this big. The other thing to note is today's slides and resources are here at aka.ms/today's stuff. That's aka.ms/today's stuff. Please notice there's 2 S's in today's stuff. To get that, just open up your browser, type that link in, and you will be able to download the slides and all the other resources. Now, there's going to be lots of links and lots of bits and pieces that you're going to want, I promise. I don't say that with any hubris. There's going to be a lot that you're going to want. So take a moment and grab those slides, whether it's now or later on in the day. But again, you just open your browser, go to aka.ms/today's stuff, and then just click on everything and hit the download button. All right, it's really quite simple. All right. Actually, before we get into that, any questions so far? Welcome to come off mute. I can see someone's hand. That's hilarious. Someone's hand was sitting in a chair then. That was great. No questions? Okay, chatty bunch, let's move on then. So here's our workshop agenda for the day. I'm just going to get rid of that. Intro and getting to know each other. All right, you're about to dive into that in a moment. Then we're going to look at Universal Design for Learning, which is called UDL, not Spirit in a Can. We're going to talk about individualization and Windows 10 ease of access. I'm going to give you a very basic introduction to Microsoft 365. We did have a larger introduction to 365 day, which was, depending on which cohort you were in, which was run in the last couple of weeks. So please understand today is not an introduction to 365. You can reach out to whoever sent you along to this today at your school, who can reach back to Microsoft and find the recording if this is something that you want to go into a bit of a deeper dive. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look at reading support, okay, using these tools and what support that we've got, writing support as well. Then we're going to go through a lot of the resources, because it's one thing to be exposed to it, it's another to, oh, how do I bring this into my school? And then your homework is really to go and have hands-on time, right, to dive in and have a play. And that's where these slides will be relevant to you. Now, this really does need to be a 2-day workshop. So I have cut a lot out. But what I've done is I have left a lot of that content in the slides, right? And there's links and other bits and pieces inside the slides. So, you know, when you might look at it and go, oh, what about maths? Or what about speaking and listening and some of these other things? You can scroll down into the slides and there's links for you to go and do your own discovery and find out, you know, what's going on in that space, all right? But we have to be realistic. I've only got you for, 3-4 hours really, okay? Because we've got those 2 90-minute blocks and that 1 hour block, and then we've got breaks and bits and pieces. So yeah, we can't fit it all in. So apologies if there's something that you are hoping for is not going to be presented today. Nevertheless, I've got those links for you to find out. All right, so we've done the Teams dive. I hope you enjoyed that. This is our Microsoft mission statement. Our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And that is our genuine mission statement. As you can see there, I have highlighted every person, because the culture of Microsoft is, or underlined, the culture of Microsoft is that we take our responsibility for accessibility really, really seriously, right? That we are at least one of, if not the most ubiquitous software companies on the planet. Everyone's using our stuff. And so we have a responsibility to make sure that we make this as accessible as possible. So let's talk about the inclusive classroom and what that looks like from a Microsoft perspective. 50% of instructional time can be lost managing students' needs, including in assistive technology, right? So what I mean by that is by managing students' needs before we start the teaching and learning, okay? I'm not for 1 minute saying that managing their needs is not important, but time that if that was already handled, if that was already managed, we'd have a lot more teaching and learning time. Virtually 100% of schools in Australia have students with learning difficulties enrolled, all right? So that's everyone. So we're not talking about special schools, all right? We are certainly including special schools, but we're not talking solely about special schools. We're talking about everyone. About 20% of students in Australian schools require inclusive education supports. That's 1 in 5, all right? So that's every single class. And then about 25% of Australian students are from a language background other than English. All right. So the reason I show all these stats, for those of you that are coming at this today from, already working in learning support, this. This is what you face on a daily basis in the work that you do. But I like to stress that we're not talking about, special cohorts or special schools. We're talking about mainstream, right? That this is what it looks like. All right. So before we go on, I would like to hear from you. So what I'm going to get you to do, right, is some of you hopefully are willing to jump into the chat, which would be fantastic. All right, and let me just stop sharing and just put your name, your school and your role. All right, so go ahead and throw that in the chat, your name, your school and your role so everyone can see. But I'm also going to invite somebody to come off mute and introduce themselves. Right, so if you're feeling brave, come off mute or turn your camera on, whatever, and just say good day to everyone. That would be really helpful. Tell us who you are, what you do, what school you're from, what state.
I'll go.
Thanks, Alana. Appreciate that.
So my name's Alana Fergs. I'm from Gorican High School. I'm currently relieving in the role of head teacher, teaching and learning, and also learning support teacher at the school. So I'm one of the teachers leading this program within the school, working with our IT person.
Cool. And Alana, sorry, I missed it. What state, what city?
New South Wales.
Yeah.
And the high school's Gorican High School. So on the Central Coast region. Okay.
And are you guys in lockdown?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Hope you're doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So certainly this is coming good timing to extra training using all these platforms.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alana. Now we've got Emma has put her hand up. Did you want to jump in, Emma?
Good morning.
Now, Emma, you just need to make sure that other people in the room have got their sound off.
So you turn yours off.
Sorry. There's like a
apology. Just turn yours off, Brett. Sorry, I'm in a room with a colleague.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm back now.
Cool. So go for it, Emma. Tell us who you are, where you're from.
I'm from Adelaide in South Australia. We're currently not in lockdown, but yeah, we work with students with disabilities. We support staff.
Okay, very cool. Welcome.
Thank
Someone
you.
Else? Someone else want to come off mute? Say good day? Yep. Carolyn.
Yeah, hi, my name's Carolyn Giblin. I'm the relieving head teacher in the support unit at Cambridge Park High in New South Wales at the moment, and we are definitely in lockdown, not enjoying it.
And tell us about your role, Carolyn. And I'm sorry to hear about lockdown.
I run a unit of 5 classes. Apparently next year we could be going to 6. Most of the students have autism. So we have 7 students in the class and we have an SLSO in each classroom. We currently have a couple of students turning up for school each day. They just badly need the support, and a lot of our kids are really struggling online.
All right, cool. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing. All right, guys. Well, if you wanted to scroll through the chat and have a look at some of the other people that are here today, we are a national group. So we've got people from all over the country, which is really cool. So welcome to everyone, and I'm really glad that you could be a part of this today. All right, so the first thing I want to introduce you to is the Microsoft Educator Center. All right, so this is our portal for online learning, okay? And so this is where we keep all those online courses around our stuff, right? So what's going to happen today is hopefully there's going to be things that are going to jump out to you that you're going to look at and say, wow, that's really exciting. I'd like to know more. So what I'm going to do quickly is I'm just going to open that web page up. And the reason why this also matters to you is this is how you're going to get your recognition for your attendance today. Now, most of you will know that if you keep your invitation email for your teacher registration board, right, your invitation email, your confirmation email, that will be enough, okay? You don't need a traditional certificate. It's funny the amount of schools that I go to where I want my certificate, and it's like, oh, you don't need your certificate. Email's enough. But truly, it is enough. But nevertheless, if you want to get recognition for today, there's an even better way to do that. And that is you come to education.microsoft.com, which is, as I said, is our Microsoft Educator Center. Okay, and when you come here for the first time, if you've been here before, hopefully you have created an account, but you need to come over here to sign in and you need to create an account. All right, you can use your school email address, all right, or you can use another email address, that's fine. But, you know, if you're in New South Wales Education Department, Victorian Education Department, you're at, you know, local Catholic school, etc., that's fine. You can sign in using your Office 365 credential and it will connect you through there, all right? Now, the reason why that matters is later on today, I'm going to give you a code and you will come to this code. I'm just going to quickly sign in. I just realized I'm in the wrong browser. I'm just going to open another browser. Just give me a moment. Okay, so you can see here that I've already signed in. Okay, that's me there. When I click on this and then I redeem achievement code, later today, I'm going to give you an achievement code. I'm not going to give it to you now, but I will give it to you later. And then you'll just punch that code in and then it will record a full day's, it'll actually give you 6 hours. Look at that, give you time for your breaks. It will give you a full 6 hours worth of PD recorded into your account here. And then when I come into my profile and then I view my transcript, I can see everything that I've ever done, whether it's face-to-face or online, etc., all inside here. All right, so this is much better than your certificates because it records absolutely everything that you've done. Now, everybody except New South Wales, this will count as your level 1 PD. Whatever PD hours you need, you can go in and do through the Microsoft Educator Center. For New South Wales, it's counted as teacher identified only. All right, so those of you that are from New South Wales, you know what that means. The rest of us, it doesn't matter. So you can do some training through this, through what we're doing today, but also through your online stuff. And as long as you log it, you will get it recorded, all right? Now, what I want to share with you is when we're in the Educator Center, okay, we've got our training here, and I'm not going to spend too long on this other than to point out you've got courses and learning paths. So courses are individual courses, learning paths are groups of courses. So for example, if I click on learning paths, and then I start to type in the word inclusive, so I just start includes, and then I do a search. what it does is it brings up all the inclusive classroom courses or learning paths that are available to you, right? So this is where you can go back and do your own study on top of what we're going to learn today, because we're going to skim across the top and this will take you much deeper. So we've got this learning path here called the Inclusive Classroom, Finding the Correct Learning Tools, Inclusive Classroom Foundation, Inclusive Classroom Specialization. Please go in and have a look at those. But the Inclusive Classroom Foundation is a good one to start. You can see here that it's 5 hours worth of PD. Individual courses, you can do them in any order, but we've put them in an order that we think is going to be, you know, sort of more linear and relevant to you. Those of you that, sorry, someone that just said in the chat that they need approval from their admin to join the Educator Centre, please go and see your admin and get that, because you will need your techie, because you will need this if you're going to get the points. But also you can go and just use a private email address if you want. It doesn't matter, because it's just as long as it's owned by you. All right. So that's what that looks like. And please jump in, have a bit of explore of that later on. That's there for you. And as I said, it is definitely able to be credited as PD for everyone, except in some sense New South Wales. All right. So let's get going. So I really love this graphic here, and I've just realised when I was talking to a lot of you guys about time, I realised I was talking mostly to South Australia. So I just want to stress, South Australia we're finishing at 10:30, Eastern States we're finishing at 11, and I guess for those of you from WA we're finishing at 9 for our morning break. All right. So yeah, anyway, coming back to this. So look at the difference between equality and equity, right? They are not the same thing. Everyone getting the same thing and everybody having an equitable experience is actually quite different. Again, you can download these slides, so hopefully this is, you know, relevant to you and you can take that elsewhere and use it. But the thing that I love about it is sometimes we think about equality, and equality is everyone gets the same thing, but we can see over here, this guy's actually given up what he doesn't need for someone else that does. And it's a nice, you know, it's very simplified, I know, but it's a nice little way of pointing out the difference between equality and equity. And so today we're going to talk a lot about equity, a little bit about equality. We'll see how we go. So this is the most, or the best-selling toy of all time, believe it or not. It's this one, the Rubik's Cube. Usually when I ask people what's the best-selling toy of all time, people come back and say things like Lego, Monopoly, this kind of thing. Believe it or not, it's actually the Rubik's Cube. Which is a puzzle, not just a toy. Now, there are people that, I don't know if you've seen on Netflix, there's that Netflix documentary about these people that can do the Rubik's Cube really, really fast. And there are people in the world that can do the Rubik's Cube in less than 30 seconds, right? And it's not tricks, right? They genuinely, you give them the Rubik's Cube, mess it up, they can undo it or do it, I should say, in less than 30 seconds. There are lots of different ways, I should say, that people look to do the Rubik's Cube. Some do it through pattern recognition. Some do it through memorizing of algorithms. I don't know about you, but what I used to do was I used to get a screwdriver and pop this middle piece right here, and then the whole thing would fall apart, and then I could put it back together. And that was actually how I did the Rubik's Cube, which took me a lot longer than 30 seconds, to be honest. And you used to, I don't know if you can remember, I'm a little bit older, I'm 50 now, but I can remember kids used to come to school in the 80s and all their stickers were all peeled, right? They'd actually peel the stickers off and put the stickers all back on. Do you remember that? Yeah. So yeah, look, however you get to do your Rubik's Cube is cool. But there is a computer programmer and he works for Google and he's actually able to do the Rubik's Cube in less than 30 seconds. He's part of that club, but he is totally blind. All right. He's totally, absolutely blind. So in the chat, what I'd love you to do is I'd love you to think about it. If I gave this Rubik's Cube to this gentleman who is totally blind, do you think he would be able to demonstrate that skill to us? Okay, so just that normal stock standard Rubik's Cube, right? There's no raised nothing on it. There's just a stock standard Rubik's Cube. Do you think he would be able to solve that Rubik's Cube? So I want you to put in the chat, just simply yes or no. He's totally blind. I told you he can do it in less than 30 seconds, but that's the device I give him. So pop in the chat yes or no. What do you think? I'll give you a clue. It's not a trick question. Okay, lots of yeses. Yes with instruction. Or maybe he could instruct us. Remember, he's the genius. All right, so the answer is no, folks. Remember, I said it's not a trick question. He's blind. How's he going to do the Rubik's Cube if he can't see it? All right, so the simple answer was no, he can't do it. And yet he has this amazing skill. How are we going to ever assess, right, as teachers, how could we ever assess his ability to do what he's doing when his disability or his challenge gets in the way of him being able to demonstrate that to us? So here's one solution, this kind of Rubik's Cube. All right, now this kind of Rubik's Cube, is, for those of you that can't see, maybe you've got poor resolution on your screen, it's actually got raised braille on the Rubik's Cube. It's totally white. And as he's rubbing his fingers over that, he can read braille and he could actually do the Rubik's Cube really fast like that, possibly in less than 30 seconds. However, for the rest of us, and I want you to put this in the chat, how would you go if I gave you that Rubik's Cube? Let's assume that you could do the Rubik's Cube in less than 30 seconds, right? Let's make that assumption. But if I gave you that Rubik's Cube, how would you go? Could you do it? Yes or no? And I want you to pop that in the chat. In less than 30 seconds. No, of course not. Although we may, no, less than 30 seconds, Richard Ellis. Less than 30 seconds, assuming you can do it in less than 30 seconds. Okay, so the answer obviously is no, right? It's not a trick question, right? And you're not going to learn Braille in 30 seconds. For what it's worth, I think even if I did learn Braille, for me to actually be able to decipher that and build those frameworks in my brain, right? To build that sort of framework in my brain to be able to interpret that as instead of colors. I don't know. I really don't think I would ever get there, even if I was given, 35 years. But who knows? But the point that I'm making here is that a moment ago, most of us could do the Rubik's Cube with a device like this, but we were excluding people. Then we come up with a specialized device, and now a small group of people could achieve doing the Rubik's Cube in less than 30 seconds, but the rest of us are excluded. So what we need is a device that's something like this. And again, if you've got low resolution on your screen and you can't see, what we've got there is we have got colors. Okay, it's a full Rubik's Cube with colors, but each color has a unique raised symbol. So red has an X, green has like a T symbol, yellow has 3 little dots. So what's happening there is you don't need to know how to read Braille to solve that Rubik's Cube. You can be fully sighted and be seeing colors. But if you had color differentiation issues, like you had some sort of color blindness or some sort of challenge around color differentiation, you could still do the Rubik's Cube. And so that's what we call inclusive design. All right, that's a prime example of inclusive design. So what inclusive design is about is not just hitting our mainstream or our average, it's also hitting those groups that are excluded. But it also, the thing about universal design is when we start to design these tools, we realize that we start to hit people that we didn't realize we were missing, okay? And we start to open the tools up to a larger group of people, all right? So hopefully that's really clear, all right? That the difference between this first design, this second design, and the third design is the much more inclusive one, all right? And look, to be honest, this is where we could start. Those of us that don't know Braille, we don't have to learn Braille, all right? And even people that do know Braille, they don't have to be exercising their use of Braille, all right? So, yeah. So we call that universal design, all right? Now, when we look at our technology, all right, so here's an iPad. I love my iPad. I work for Microsoft, all right? And I still love my Apple devices, all right? I've got my iWatch on, my Apple Watch on at the moment. I've got my iPhone. We've got Apple TV. A lot of our personal, passive digital technology in my household, it tends to be Apple, right? Because it's really easy and nice to navigate. Problem with a lot of these tools, though, is that they are great for the passive accessing of media, but they're not necessarily great for building, right, and creating and interacting with that. And that's where we need something like a PC. But when I think about my iPad and how much I enjoy my iPad, I do a lot of reading on my iPad, right? And those of you that use an iPad for reading, or maybe you use a Kindle device, will know that it really simulates the book experience. Okay. Now, if we didn't have accessibility tools built in, and the iPad does, and the Kindle does, and our PC does 100%, but if we didn't, what we would have computers emulating or copying what we already have in the analog world, okay? Which at first is a really nice idea for those of us that are fully able. But when we start to think about actually if we're recreating exactly what everyone else is used to without accessibility features, we're just locking people out of technology now, just like they're locked out of books, etc. So we have to think about building these accessibility features into the tools, right, into our technology, both into the hardware and into the software, all right? Because if we don't, we're locking people out. So that's universal design. Now, there is another thing, I shouldn't say another thing, there is a process that we can use in education, which is called universal design for learning, right? And that's what I said before, right? UDL. We know this wasn't created in Australia. No one would call it UDL because that's all about getting hammered in the 80s as a teenager. Well, it was for me. So UDL is the idea of bringing our engagement of our students into our learning with the same universal design principles, right? That we're making sure that everything that we create is as accessible as possible for all students, right? Now, I want to stress this is different to differentiation, okay? It's more aligned with personalization, but I'm going to draw that distinction a little bit later on. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a video, all right? I'm just going to make sure that I, again, shared my audio. I get paranoid that I didn't share my audio. So we'll just let that video load up, and then I'm going to start this for you. It's a nice little introduction to UDL. It does a much better job of introducing UDL than I do. And can I get those of you that have got your cameras on, when I start playing this, can you just stick your thumbs up, your literal thumbs up, just to let me know that you can hear this?
This teacher needs to meet a curriculum goal, and she's got a very diverse group of students. And so does this teacher. And this one. Most do. In fact, research shows that the way people learn is as unique as their fingerprints. What does this mean for teachers of today? Classrooms are highly diverse, and curriculum needs to be designed from the start to meet this diversity. Universal design for learning is an approach to curriculum that minimizes barriers and maximizes learning for all students. Whoa, that's a fancy term. Universal design for learning. Let's unpack it a bit. Let's think about the word universal. By universal, we mean curriculum that can be used and understood by everyone. Each learner in the classroom brings her own background, strengths, needs, and interests. Curriculum should provide genuine learning opportunities for each and every student. Now let's think about the word learning. Learning is not one thing. Neuroscience tells us that our brains have three broad networks. One for recognition, the what of learning, one for skills and strategies, the how of learning, and one for caring and prioritizing, the why of learning. Students need to gain knowledge, skills, and enthusiasm for learning, and a curriculum needs to help them do all three. But every learner is unique, and one size does not fit all. So how do we make a curriculum that challenges and engages diverse learners? This is where the word design comes in. A universally designed building is planned to be flexible and to accommodate all kinds of users, with and without disabilities. It turns out that if you design for those in the margins, your building works better for everyone. Curb cuts and ramps are used by people in wheelchairs, people with strollers, and people on bikes. Captioning on TV serves people who are deaf, people learning English, people in gyms, and spouses who get to sleep at different times. UDL takes this idea and applies it to the design of flexible curriculum. UDL goes beyond access because we need to build in support and challenge. So how do we use the UDL framework to make learning goals, methods, materials, and assessments that work for everyone? First, ask yourself, what is my goal? What do I want my students to know, do, and care about? Then ask, what barriers in the classroom might interfere with my diverse students reaching these goals? To eliminate the barriers, use the 3 UDL principles to create flexible paths to learning so that each student can progress. Number 1, provide multiple means of representation. Present content and information in multiple media and provide varied supports. Use graphics and animation, highlight the critical features, activate background knowledge, and support vocabulary so that students can acquire the knowledge being taught. Number 2, provide multiple means of action and expression. Give students plenty of options for expressing what they know and provide models, feedback, and supports for their different levels of proficiency. Number 3, provide multiple means of engagement. What fires up one student won't fire up another. Give students choices to fuel their interests and autonomy. Help them risk mistakes and learn from them. If they love learning, they will persist through challenges. And remember, always keep in mind the learning goal. Get rid of barriers caused by the curriculum.
Okay, so for those of you that want to grab that video, please, it's at www.cast.org. They've got links directly to those videos and a lot more information about universal design for learning, including what I'm about to share with you here. So I'm giving you this more as a resource rather than a whole session on universal design for learning, because as I said, we've just got so much that I need to get through today. So again, grab these slides and then you can get all these these bits and pieces. All right, but we talk about engagement, representation, and action and expression, and then here are the universal design for learning guidelines. Right, so there's all this stuff here around engagement, and I find that over here around engagement is really a lot of the stuff that's going to reflect the culture of the school and the culture of the classroom. So this is more about the way that you build and the way that you approach it as a teacher, thinking like optimizing individual choice, relevance, value, and authenticity, minimizing threats and distractions, right? This is the stuff that really comes from the school and from the teacher, setting the culture of the classroom, like even, you know, making sure that you're fostering collaboration and community. But when we get into things like representation and action and expression, this is where we sort of get into the weeds of it all. All right, things like clarifying vocabulary and symbols, syntax and structure, highlighting patterns, what's some of these others, using multiple media for communication and multiple tools for construction and composition, etc. And then when you're thinking about universal design as an approach in your classroom, there's some really good questions here that you can ask, right? And to sort of help keep you on track. But if you're anything like me, and I was a primary teacher for a really long time, I've got 25, 30 kids, whatever, in my class that I am trying to present a curriculum to. And now Troy from Microsoft is coming along telling me that I've got to do all this as well, right? And so this is how I would have felt as a teacher. 100%, I would have felt exactly like this. And if you're feeling like that, I get it. But what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to talk to you about how the technology can do the heavy lifting, right? So I said before about the difference between differentiation and personalization. So instead of you as the teacher having to create all these resources and make all this stuff available to the students and, you know, having this document for this kid and another version of the document for another kid, instead what we're going to see is that the technology allows the individual student to personalize, and it's less about the teacher and more about the student, right? And that's not just talk. It really is possible. So when we think about the Microsoft Inclusive Classroom, we want inclusive education tools to give students more personalized access to their curriculum. So it's about the student directly accessing the curriculum as much as possible. We want to optimize the educator time. Okay, so we want to make sure that this isn't another thing. This isn't another burden. This is actually something that helps you, right, as a teacher. And then ultimately the business of school is to improve learning outcomes, of course. Now, what we want to do in this first pillar is we want to increase student independence. So less about you as a teacher and more about them, but also a reduction of stigma. Okay, so you know that a lot of the kids in your schools, they would rather miss out than stand out. So we're talking about the same software as everybody else in the room. We're talking about the same hardware as everybody else in the room. We're not talking about special education technology, all right? It also means that you are more empowered to engage every learner. And then lastly, we want to see your school, right, or your department or your diocese, wherever you're coming from today, as a positive place that promotes equity and inclusion through technology, both in the community outside and also within the school community, that people know this is a good place to be because the school will do this for us. Okay, so at Microsoft, we sit across these main 6 areas, all right? So learning, visual support, hearing support, mobility support, neurodiversity, and mental health as well. We are going to spend a lot of time really on this, a little bit on this and a little bit on this today, so these first 3, but really we're going to look at sort of learning support. But you can dive down this rabbit hole at Microsoft. That we do a lot in these other spaces as well. So we have these 4 main areas, okay, and that is reading support, writing support, and this is what we're going to spend most of our time on today, okay? We have a little bit in math support, and I will give you the tools by which you can, and the resources by which you can find out what is it that we have in this space, and the same for speaking and listening as well, right? We'll see how we go for time. We may have a little bit of time to talk about speaking and listening support for the deaf and also for EAL, but the bulk of our time today is going to be spent on reading support and writing support, okay? Another thing, when you grab these resources, this is the teacher in me. I found a really good course on Universal Design for Learning, and it's a free course. All right, so when you grab these slides, you'll be able to click on that link. The PDF will work, and you'll be able to go in and you can do a course, and you can do a much deeper dive. All right, this is more about exposing you to universal design. This is about what we're doing now. This is about learning for yourself, right? So there's videos and articles and all kinds of stuff. Someone's just come off mute. Did you have a question? No? Okay, cool. All right, so any questions about UDL, Universal Design for Learning, I should say, before we go on? Any comments? All right, using your hand raise button, okay, I want you to raise your hand if you've heard of it before or if you've got a positive vibe towards Universal Design for Learning. Go ahead and just raise your hand. Don't forget to lower your hand after you've finished, otherwise it'll stay up, and then later on I'll ask you if you've got a question and you'll say no. All right, very cool. Thanks everyone. I'm glad that was useful. It is a good framework. Please feel free to find out more through that course there. All right, so let's talk. Where are we at? We've got about half an hour to go. So inside your chat, all right, inside the chat, whether you've got your video on or off, it doesn't matter. I would like you to please put inside the chat, what is the average shoe size in the world? All right, and I want you to think about it in men's sizes. Certainly this is incorporating women as well, but what is the average shoe size in the world? But I want you to give me a men's size. So if you're going to say, you know, men's 10, you might be thinking, you know, a women's 12, whatever. Okay, so the average men's size, Richard says, is a 5. Richard knows a lot of hobbits, I guess. 9, 10, 9.5, 10, 8, 9. I guess when we factor in kids, you're right, it could draw that average right down, Richard. But actually it doesn't. I was blown away when I found this out. The average shoe size in the world is the equivalent to a men's 10.5, which means that we as humanity have big feet compared to me, I tell you. I really thought that it was going to be something like an 8, but it's not. But what would happen if we started making only size 10.5 shoes? If we said, okay, that's the average is 10.5. What would happen if we started doing that? Have a think, pop it in the chat if you want, but I'm going to jump ahead and say this is what would happen, okay? We would actually miss what most people need. And why is that? Even though I said the average size is 10.5, how could we be missing most? Because most people, very few people are in fact the average. And this is what we call the myth of the average, because the average is a mathematically conceptual term. All right. It's not something that exists in the real world. It's our way of pointing to a middle point. All right. Similar to a mean, I guess. It's our way of pointing, or it is a mean, median, I was trying to say. It's our way of pointing to a middle point, but it's not actually most. And yet when we talk about the average as teachers, we often think about the average as being the most, right? But it's not true. What we need is we need various sizes. All right, as teachers, as students, as people who want shoes, we need various sizes, and we require various styles as well. Now, I'm not going down the learning styles path here. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is we have different styles for different events, for different needs, for different contexts. All right, we all have different needs. We all have different styles. And so that brings us to this term here. All right, differentiation. Now, we're all friends here, so I'm going to swear. This used to shit me to tears. When people used to talk to me about differentiation, to me, it was just a lot more work, right? And especially when people started talking to me about learning styles, right? Now, if you don't know, learning styles as an idea, as an academic idea, has been debunked, all right? That doesn't mean that we don't have biases. That doesn't mean that we don't lean towards different kinds of learning, for sure. But the idea of learning styles, that we all have a unique style or a dominant style, is just not true. Or that we should be pandering to those as teachers is just not true either. We all pretty much learn in very similar ways. We rely a lot on auditory, we rely a lot on visual, etc. All right. But the thing about differentiation, what used to really annoy me about differentiation is that I'm sitting there, as I said before, with a group of students, all right, 25 kids. I've got a curriculum. I've got excursions coming up. I've got, kids not eating their lunches and their parents are sending me emails saying that there's so much going on. And yet I am supposed to now start to make individual resources for all my kids that have individual needs. Half of them aren't funded. They don't have an aid. And I, as a teacher, am supposed to differentiate. Oy vey, it used to absolutely drive me bonkers, right? Because who has time for this? Right. And I know you know this, right? We don't say this to the parents. And I sort of think that the differentiation, and I'm going to call it the myth of differentiation, I sort of think the emperor has no clothes. I think oftentimes we'd write it in our professional development plans. We'd voice to one another in the staff room of how well we differentiate, etc. But we know that we don't, right? There's so much of a lack there because we just don't have the resources to be able to differentiate. All right. So I say that as your ally, not judging you for a moment. But let's talk about this term here, personalization. And while seemingly the same as differentiation on the surface, we think, oh, yeah, making it different for different kids. It is very different from differentiation because personalization doesn't put the onus on the teacher. Personalization puts the onus on the learner. All right. So the student personalizes their own learning, or the student personalizes their own experience. So the onus is no longer on the teacher. Now, I want to stress something. Yes, the teacher must facilitate personalization. That is, you must create a culture in your classroom and a culture in your school, if you're a school leader, that opens personalization up. All right. So I'm not saying we don't have any responsibility, but the difference is the student personalizes their own experience rather than you as a teacher creating differentiated resources, etc. I know I'm harping on, but this used to really, really bug me, because who had time to differentiate? The cool thing about personalization is we do have time for it. And so let's talk about it, especially when we think about technology. Okay, so first thing I want to introduce you to is what's called the Windows 10 ease of access. All right, so Mac users, iPad users, apologies for a moment. We're going to go down the Windows 10 rabbit hole for a little while, but I promise this is not going to be the whole day at all. We have an area in our settings called ease of access, okay, which is where everything that you need to make your device more accessible lives. Now, how do we find that? Well, you just hit your Windows key on your keyboard or your Windows key on the bar on the bottom of your screen, okay, and then you look for the settings wheel, or if you've got your search bar, you can type in settings, okay, and what it does is it opens up your Windows settings space, all right? So again, hit your Windows key, look for the little settings wheel, or if you can see your little search wheel, just type in settings, all right, and you'll come to your Windows settings. And the Windows settings is basically, you know, just like on your iPhone or etc. It's where you go to do that under the hood changes, etc. But once upon a time, you used to have to go over here to change your sound, and over here to change your visuals, and down here to change your mouse, and up here to change, you know, and everything was in these sort of disparate places. What we've done is we've created this one location, which is called ease of access. And everything that I need to make my device more accessible lives here. So I click on the ease of access button, and look what happens. I come into the ease of access center, and I've got vision as a category, and I've got all these points down here. I've got hearing as a category and all these points down here, and then I've got interaction as a category. Now, it is extremely important. Why am I showing you this? Of course, I'm showing you this because you need to show the kids that you work with, all right, that, hey, did you know, and the families of the kids that you work with, hey, did you know that you can make your device far more accessible? You can make your device far more easier to use. You can, here it comes, personalize your device so that I, as a teacher, know that my students are getting the absolute best experience, right? We are going to do a much deeper dive into personalization, don't worry, but this is where it starts, all right? So everything to make my device more visually appealing or visually accessible lives here under vision. Hearing, of course, is over here in interaction. Now, I want to point out a few things to you, right? Because some of these changes that we've made, they're under the hood, right? And a lot of people didn't realize that they were there. First thing I want to point out to you, do you remember when you used to make your font size bigger? You used to have to know 12 point, 11 point, you know, font type, etc. What we've done is we've just made it more intuitive. Let's make the text bigger. All right, so I've got a sample text here. I don't need to know anything about font point size or anything like that. I can just drag that to what I want it to be, and then I hit apply. Now, I'm not going to do that because my screen will reset and other things, right? But another thing here is making everything bigger, all right? So not just my text, but all my headings and sidebars and all that can all be done here by making everything bigger, all right? And again, I'm not going to give you a demo of that, but you can see as my eyesight is going, I'm already at 200%, all right? And, you know, once upon a time, I didn't need this. Making everything brighter. All right, so you can make everything darker, make everything brighter. You guys can't see this. I can see this on my second screen. That's happening right now. And look down here, showing the animations in Windows. Now, you may say, what's that got to do with accessibility? Because some of your students suffer from attention issues, and these animations can be extremely distracting. So we just want to be able to switch them off. All right, so with the transparencies, right, it's a bit hard to see on my screen here, but if we've got text sitting over a transparency and I've got differentiation, color differentiation issues that are visual, from a visual perspective, that's going to make it really hard for me. So I want to be able to switch those things off. The scroll bars, right, over here, being able to automatically hide those, or do I want them to be there all the time so a student knows that that's where it lives and they can move it rather than going, where's it gone, all right? Our notifications, things like this. Do we want our notifications, sometimes you get an email notification or a Teams notification. How long do you want it to be on there for, right? Maybe we want it to be quick. Maybe we want it to be extremely fast. Maybe we want it to be extremely slow because we have a cognitive processing issue or because some other sort of challenge. Same with our desktop background image. It's really easy just to switch it off, all right? The mouse pointer, for example. Now you can see what I've done with mine is I've made it a nice big teal color because I knew I was going to be presenting to you guys today. That's actually where I live. I live with a nice big teal mouse color. So when you're presenting to your students, maybe you're going to need it nice and big and a nice color, or maybe the student needs it nice and big. So too with their text cursor, all right? Don't necessarily think bigger is better. All right, sometimes bigger is harder to actually navigate, but nevertheless, we can change the color and we can change the size. The magnifier, all right, as it is, instead of making everything bigger, it brings a magnifying glass over the top of your screen, and then you can be hovering and seeing things bigger and smaller. The one that I love the most is the color filters, all right, because people didn't realize you may be sharing graphics, text, colored text, etc., that people that have red, green, or blue, yellow color blindness can't differentiate on your screen. So rather than you as a teacher having to know, what settings are, that's fine. Just get your student to come in here, turn on their color filter. If they're red, green, or blue, yellow colorblind, switch it on, and then the device will make sure that if something has got those colors, it will differentiate, it will change the colors and build that out for the student, right? We've also got the ability to show grayscale, inverted colors, etc. High contrast view is in there as well, all right? And then we've also got the narrator. So the narrator will actually read the screen for you as well. You may have heard of something called JAWS. JAWS is a screen reader for people with visual impairments. Narrator is on par now with JAWS, right? And it's free. It's part of Windows 10 rather than paid software. I've got my audio settings in here. Something as simple as turning on the mono audio. If I've lost sound, all right, if I've lost hearing in one ear and then I've got stereo sound coming through, I'm missing half the sound that's coming out of that game or out of that audio recording. So being able to turn that on is really key. And also showing those audio alerts visually. So instead of a little, banner coming across, I will get some sort of ding or some sort of representation, or it'll read it to me, etc. Just makes a complete difference. And so too with closed captions, right? It's not just enough to have captions. We have to set the way our captions are going to work for us individually. Black background with white text, or white background with black text, etc. All right, so being able to set that up is important. Speech with dictate, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that later today. Things like the keyboard settings, our mouse settings, and also eye gaze control. If you remember people like Stephen Hawking or Christopher Reeve once upon a time needed to be able to access this. It's now default to Windows. You don't need special interfaces for that hardware. All right, so again, it's the starting point. All right, it's not rocket science, right? It's just a matter of showing the families or showing the kids when they're on their devices, hey, this is how we do this in Windows 10. This is how we make it more relevant to you or more accessible for you. And then the students can take control of that and take charge of that. And it's one less job for you teachers. All right, cool. All right, we've got 20 minutes to go. Does anyone have any questions? Come off mute about ease of access. No, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Remember how we found it? The Windows key, or we find the Windows button on our start menu, go into settings, and then be looking for ease of access. All right. Don't get confused with personalization. All right. There's more in there, I guess. But accessibility and everything to make our device more accessible is here. Okay. Now, what's cool is, if you hadn't heard, Windows 11 is just about to be released. It's been announced, and there's versions of it out in the wild already. And so we have I really like this video. It's brand new. It's only a couple of days old, but it's just showing what we're doing around Windows 11 with ease of access and with accessibility. So I'm just going to share that video with you now. Apologies, guys. I'm going to start that again.
Sorry, guys, I can't hear anything there.
Okay, thanks for pointing that out. Let's try again. Can I get someone giving me thumbs up if you've got sound this time? Let's take it back to the beginning. Okay, guys, we're just going to have to read the subtitles, I'm afraid. There's a technical issue. Okay, sorry about the noise there, guys. I don't know why I wasn't getting any sound. Apologies. So what we're going to do now, though, with our last 15 minutes before we go on our break, is a couple of things. First thing is I'm going to give you a little bit of hands-on time. So if you've got a Windows device, you can 100% jump in and start playing with Ease of Access and have a bit of a play around. I would like to give you a little bit of time to sort of look at how you might make the device more accessible for yourself. Okay, that's the first thing. And then once you've done that, I want you to think about this reflection point. How does Ease of Access support individualization for your students? And how do you intend to introduce Ease of Access to your students? All right. So have a bit of a play around with Ease of Access, have a look at some of the settings, etc., and then come back and think about this reflection point. And that's going to take us through until 11 o'clock Eastern time. Central time, that's till 10:30. And WA, well, you can work it out, 9 o'clock. And then, guys, we're going to have a half-hour break. Okay, so take this 13 minutes to have a bit of a hands-on play around, then take a break, and then we're going to come back and I'll put a little countdown on the screen as well, but we'll come back for 11:30 my time, and then we'll keep going. Sounds good? All right, have a bit of a play, and I'll see you guys in just under 45 minutes. Sharing my screen for you. Okay, so can you guys see my screen? Should see a lady on the couch with her Surface device. Yeah, okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about Office and about how Office works. As I said, there was a introduction to Microsoft 365 call that happened in your unique STP School Transformation Program cohort. So please reach out to the person at your school to then reach out to whoever their contact was about getting that. Department of Education, for example, South Australia, you guys can reach out to Cindy Dennison and she'll make this available to you. All right. So what we're going to do now is, as I said, talk a little bit about Office. This is going to be quite quick, but I want to talk about, first of all, there's versions of Office that you have installed on your machine, whether you're on a Mac or whether you're on a PC, and a lot of you are going to have Office 2016. Some of you are going to have Office 2019, and kudos to you. But there is another version of Office as well that I'm going to draw your attention to, because when we're thinking about accessibility, we need to make sure that we are on the most up-to-date version of Office if we're going to get the most features and bells and whistles, etc. Now, I would say probably every single one of you owns a subscription to the latest, greatest version of Office, but I just want to make sure that you understand a little bit about it. So there is Office 2019. To confuse us, that was released in 2018. Okay, so that is now, where are we, 19, 20, 21. So that's a 3-year-old version of Office. All right. Now, what happens is with Office 2019, and some of you are on Office 2016, right? So even longer. But what happens with that version of Office is it doesn't mature, right? It doesn't get new features. It certainly matures. It gets old, but it doesn't get new features and bells and whistles, etc. Right? Now, we have another cloud-based offering, which we can find at office.com. I'm going to take you in a moment and show you that. But this is where we have all our browser-based options. All right. So we have, Word in the browser. We have, OneNote in the browser, these kinds of things. Now, where we are different to some of our competitors is we still have the fully installed version down here, Office 2019, and we've also got the cloud-based stuff. All right. Now, what's happened for, I would say all of you, there may be 1 or 2 schools, but I very much doubt it, is that your school or your department or your diocese has bought for you a version of Office called Microsoft 365 Apps. Now, Microsoft 365 Apps looks very similar to Office 2019, but what happens is every time there's a new feature rollout, you guys get it. You're not waiting for Office 2022 or 2021 or whatever to be released, right? You get the latest, greatest version at all times, right? So we are in a subscription model here. Now, what it does is it takes the best of this and the best of this, okay? And it gives you that sort of seamless experience. So what I need you to do, and I've talked to your techies, and I know other people in other cohorts have spoken to your techies, and we've been talking to them about getting this version, making sure that all your students and all your staff have got this. You guys have paid for it, you've bought it, but sometimes people are running really old versions. So what's going to happen is I'm going to show you some stuff, and you're going to say to me at some point, or you're going to say to yourself, because you guys don't like to come off mute, you're going to say, mine's not doing it. Where is that feature? I can't see it. And that's because you're possibly on this or an older version again. All right. So please reach out to your techie and say, how do we get Microsoft 365 apps? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to find it anyway. So at least you can get it on your machine today, but you want to get it out to your students, right? Assuming you've got admin privileges and you're allowed to install software. Now, what's happened is 5 free copies of Microsoft 365 apps have been purchased for every one of your staff and every one of your students. So that means that you can put it on your work machine, but you can also put it on your home machine, you can put it on your kids' machine, your partner's machine, whatever it is that you've got. And you can, as long as those people live in your house, you can put it up to onto up to five devices, right? So that's talking PC and Mac, all right? If you want to put it on iPads and phones, that's free anyway, so go right ahead. You can sign in with your department login. But just letting you know that you've got 5 free copies of Microsoft 365 apps for your PC and your Mac. So, you know, when you go down to Harvey Norman or JB Hi-Fi and you see those little hanging cards and, you know, you pay $200 or $150 or whatever it is, I'm not even sure. I work for Microsoft, don't buy the stuff. But it's quite expensive, right? I mean that in a good way because it's a great product. I'm being recorded. Actually, did I record? Yes, I did. But you guys got it for free. So it's hundreds of dollars worth of software, right? So I'm going to show you where to get that. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to open up your browser, right? And guys, boys and girls, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Look at me, hands on heads. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to do this. You're not going to do this until lunchtime. Okay, because if you do it now, your machine will slow down and you're not going to be able to keep, and you're going to miss all the goodness that I have spent hours preparing. So instead, please pay close attention to this now and do it at lunchtime, okay? But what we do is we go to www.office.com, or you can just go to office.com. So I'm going to open up a browser now to show you what that looks like. All right, mine automatically goes to office.com because I work at Microsoft, that's what we do. All right, so when we come to office.com, here we have all our browser-based apps living over here, right? So I can go into Word and PowerPoint. So I don't have to have any of the software installed on my machine. Okay, that lives over here. But you can see this button over here that says Installed Office. When I hover over it, it goes nice and orange in my environment. If I click on that once, I get a drop down saying, do you want to install Office 365 apps or other installation options? We're just going to click on that once, follow the instructions, and it will overwrite 365 apps onto your machine. If you've got another version of Office on there already, it'll just overwrite over the top of it. Absolutely brilliant. It's that simple. Okay, if you hit an error saying, oh, we can't install it because of this, then you'll have to uninstall your current version of Office and then put this version on. But make sure you've got admin access. Okay, that is that you're allowed to put software on your machine. But 100% you can do it on your work machine. You can do it on your home machine. You can do it on up to 5 different devices in your house. So when you come to office.com, just make sure that you sign in with your school email address and password. Okay, so when you come to office.com, make sure that you've signed in if you've not been there before. And then once you've signed in, you'll come to a page that looks something like this. Yours may not look as robotic as mine. I've changed that a little bit, but we just click on Install Office and we put the latest, greatest version onto our machine. All right. And if you want to make yours pretty like mine, click on the little settings wheel up here and you've got these themes and you can view them all and you can change your theme and make it really cool. You can go Lego or you can go sporty or whatever that one is. But yeah, okay, so that's how you do that if you want to do that. And also if you're feeling really trendy, you can go into dark mode. Look at that, it's like midnight in here. That's actually better for your battery and better for your screen in the long term. But that's there as well. All right. So as I said, I'm not going to a deep dive. I did this in the other session, and your STP School Transformation Program facilitator would have done something similar. So reach out if you want to find out more about that. Okay, signing in, we've talked about that, which was good. Another thing I want to point out to you really quickly is that you've got OneDrive. OneDrive is your personal storage space on Office 365. So just make sure that you're signed into that. If you're not really sure about how to do that, reach out to whoever is facilitating your School Transformation Program experience inside your school and let them know that you want to know all about OneDrive. It's your cloud storage space. You get 5 terabyte in the cloud. It's absolutely brilliant. Everything's backed up 6 times and it's just, you know, it's just wonderful. When you put things into OneDrive, then everything has the potential to be collaborative. And as I said, you got 5 terabyte of storage. So it's definitely worth your while to find that out. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you a nice little way of working with your students, when you've got groups of students and you want to see what they're all doing at the same time, I'm going to set up a, I'm going to set up a blank document. So I've just clicked on Word, bring me into Word. This is in the browser. All right, so here I am in Word in the browser. Okay, and those of you that are updated with a later version of Word, you're going to look at this and go, yep, I know this looks a lot like the Word that I'm using. If it doesn't, chances are you're on a really old version. But if you know Word, then you know Word in the browser, right? It's really easy. Now I'm going to change the name of this document by clicking on the document name, and I'm going to call this Inclusive Classroom 2021. At least I think I'm going to. It's a little bit slow to load. All right, you know what? I'm going to keep it as document 17. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to insert a table so that we have lots of room for us all to work on. Okay, so I've put a table in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a link in the chat. And when I share that link in the chat, you are all going to come into this document, right? You're going to click on the link, and then the link will open up this document. And when you come in, I want you to choose one of these fields, okay, one of these little rectangles, and inside I want your name, your five favorite holiday destinations, and your 5 favorite foods to eat, right? So really simple. Look, I would just go Troy, and then my 5 favorite holiday destinations, I'll say Boracay in Philippines. I'm going to say Bangkok, etc. All right, so I'm just going to put all those in: 5 favorite holiday destinations, 5 favorite foods to eat. Now to share the document out to you, I'm going to jump into, click my share button. I'm here, anyone with the link can edit. So it's just a little bit slow to load, so I apologize for that. I'm going to copy that link in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it in the chat. All right, so it's going to appear in your chat in a little minute. Just give me a moment. To let this load. Of course, when you're wanting things to go fast is when your machine slows down. There we go. Paste that in there. Hit enter. Okay, so that should appear in your chat shortly. So if everyone can have a look in the chat in this call, you've got a link there. All right, and then I want you to come into this, click on the link, it'll open in your browser, come into this document, find one of these rectangles here, 5 favorite foods to eat, 5 favorite holiday destinations, and put that in there. Can you guys, those of you got the camera on, has the link appeared? Thumbs up. Yep, cool. Okay, here we go. Look at this. People are starting to jump in now. Absolutely brilliant. Good. Jane's been to the Maldives. Gee, I wish I could say I've been to the Maldives. All right, when I hover over the mice, sorry, hover over these little tags, you see they all come in as guest contributors. Now, if you, because we're all in a guest tenant, so you're all just going to come in as a guest. But if you were inside your own space, you'd see your name, right? And you can hover over that and see the names of all the different kids that you're working with. Now, the reason why I show you this from an inclusivity perspective is it's you could actually bring your students all into one space and you can see what they're doing all at once. Right, so we can see who's doing what, and it's just a nice classroom management tool to be able to see who's doing what. You can support them, so I can get in there and start doing things for them. For example, Jane likes the Maldives, right? So I could click in there if I wanted. I can insert a picture from Bing, and I'm going into Bing Images, and I'm going to type in Maldives, do a search. Creative Commons only, yep, good. I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to insert that into Jane's space there. Oh, a little bit big. Let's make that a little bit smaller. Oh. Okay, so we can do things like that, right? So just remembering that when you're in here, everything that's happening, everybody has access to. There are other tools we have far more control than in Word, but I just wanted to show you that everyone can actually be in the space together, and you can be watching what all your students, so if you've got a small group or a whole class, you can be seeing what everyone's doing at once. Okie dokie. All right, guys, I'm going to get you to jump out of that document. I'm going to unshare it, I think. Right, that's going to delete that link, and now you guys will be eventually kicked out of this document. Okay. All right, so we're going to start to talk about personalization with some other tools. We certainly looked at personalization around ease of access before. Which is soon going to be rebranded as accessibility. But I want to show you more personalization, right? And some of the things that you can do around this tool called Immersive Reader. So when we're talking about the inclusive classroom, we talk about reading support, we're actually very strong in the reading support space. So what happened with this was in 2015, a group of Microsoft employees, some were programmers, some were program managers, some were marketing, some were even teachers. And they got together and they working in a hackathon and decided, let's see what we can do to support people with dyslexia. And so for a week or two at Microsoft, you get to walk away from your job when you work in the main HQ over in Seattle, and you can work on passion projects or other things that don't necessarily have a business point from a Microsoft perspective, but it's just a time to ideate, right? And so these guys decided, and when I say guys, I mean guys and girls, they got together, decided to tackle dyslexia, and they came up with this thing called Learning Tools, which has since been rebranded as Immersive Reader, and it's become much broader than just dyslexia. And it's been rolled out to a lot of our different tools. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you this video. Hopefully we're going to get sound. I'm just going to inserted URL is either not a valid video or it can't be embedded. All right, that's okay. I'm going to reshare because I've got the link. Just give me a moment, folks. Okay, looks like I don't. No worries. We're going to do it manually. We're going to do it old school. And I'm going to show you this. So I'm just going to start to share again. Now, fingers crossed we get sound, right? Because I really want you guys to be able to hear this, because a big part of Immersive Reader is the sound. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a document, right? Now, once upon a time, I would have given this document to my students, okay? And then the students that needed extra support, I would have had to differentiate. Okay, so whether the aide or whether myself or whether I got another student to help, we would have had to create a specific resource for the student. So what we're going to do is I want you to imagine with me that I've handed this document out. It's a printed piece of paper, okay? Or maybe I've given it as a Word document on a device. But this little girl, she's dyslexic, the little girl that's trying to read this. And so she can't keep up with everybody else in the class, right? Everyone else just starts to read it, they read through it, and then we move on. But actually her decoding is at such a low rate, she's unable to keep up with people. So what I would like you to do, and guys, I'm really inviting you, can keep your cameras off, but I at least need you to come on with some audio, is I want you to give me some advice. What are some of the things that you would do, whether we're in the computer, and don't say Immersive Reader because that's what we're going to do in a minute. What would you do to support this little girl with the text? All right, so imagine you're an aide, or imagine you're a learning support teacher, or even a classroom teacher. She's dyslexic, she's unable to decode. What are some of the strategies? What are some of the things that you would do to support her with decoding this text? And remember, everyone else is in the room. So feel free to come off mute and give me some answers. Give me some ideas. It's not a test.
Maybe I'll have.
Come on, guys, it's not going to work if you don't. Yep, cool. Sorry, say that again.
Have other students read parts of the text who I knew were able to do that, so she might link with them a little better.
Yep. Okay. So put it next to a more able student, and then that student could support. Yep. Cool.
If possible, read it before the actual lesson, if that's a possibility.
Okay. So get it to her in advance.
Yep.
Yep. Cool.
If the purpose of the task is not decoding, then have someone read it to her.
Okay. Sure. So whether that's a student or an aide or another teacher. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Come on, guys. You're a very talented bunch. What else would you do? I want to help her with comprehension, right? So what can we do?
Have some visuals there to support the text.
Okay. So what do you mean by that?
Picture cues.
Okay. Okay.
Talk about the content beforehand so all of the kids can connect to the topic and what's coming.
Okay.
Topic
yep.
words.
Good one. What else? So she's got this piece of text in front of her on a page or on a computer screen. What's some of the things we could do? Might we play with the font size, make it bigger for her?
I think someone did say that, but we missed it.
Okay. Maybe we could play with the spacing as well. Okay, she's dyslexic, so we might want to increase the spacing.
If there's a section that she's going to read, highlight it.
Okay, highlight a section. Cool. Anything else? One that I often see is. Oh, go on, please.
I was going to say, depending on what the text was about, but because I can hardly read your text here, but maybe there was body movements or some sort of play that you could do to enhance what the text was all about.
Cool. Yep. Another thing that I often hear people say is we would actually hide the parts of the text to increase focus. So we would cover up parts of the text maybe so that she's focusing on the sentences that she's reading, etc. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you for all those suggestions. And, you know, as I said, you guys are talented and, you know, you're in this space and so you know what that looks like. So what we did at Microsoft, and when I say we, other people, is we took what teachers did and we tried to replicate that in the classroom, right? So without getting drawn into the reading wars of whole literacy or explicit instruction or anything like that, we just looked at what other people were doing, what other teachers were doing, and tried to imitate that as best we could. So it's called Immersive Reader. When I want to use Immersive Reader, so you can see here that we've got the text, all right? And someone was saying before, you know, it's hard for them to see already, you know, even from where they are. 100%, I get it. So what we do is we click on the View tab up here, and Immersive Reader lives over here. All right, so I clicked on View and Immersive Reader, and I'm going to give you hands-on time, folks, all right? So you don't need to start opening yours up. Just follow along. Oops, someone's off mute. Let me just make sure they're muted. Just getting a little bit of feedback there. Okay. So yeah, so don't feel you need to open yours up yet because I'm going to 100% give you some hands-on time. So we click on view and the immersive reader button's over here, but I want to teach you something really cool about a lot of our tools have a little search bar. Sometimes it might be called, depending on the version you're using, it might be called tell me or tell me what you want to do. When we click on the search bar, it will actually bring the buttons to you if you know what you're looking for. So look, already it's actually brought the immersive reader button to me just because I've recently used it. But if I was looking for something like italic, okay, it'll bring the button to me. It's not just help files, right? It's actually the button. So if I highlighted something and click that, it's the same as pushing the button. But in this case, I want to look for immersive reader. All right, so there's immersive reader. It brings a button to me, or I could click it over here. All right, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to click immersive reader. And the first thing that we notice is Word is gone. Okay, so this was in a Word document, but now Word is gone. And instead, what I've got is I've just got my browser up here because I'm in the browser, and I've got this document here. Now, I want to get rid of the browser, all right, because distractions are a big issue for the students that I'm working with. So I'm just going to click this here, enter full screen mode, this little button over here. And now what it's done is it's completely removed all the bells and whistles of the app. So all I've got is the document, right? I've got some buttons, which we'll look at in a minute, but I've got my document. It's a black text on a white background. Now, what's happened here is I've actually dialed all the features back, but once you do this the first time and you come back to the same device and the same profile on the same device, it will remember your settings, right? So you don't need to do this every time, but I like to do it this way because it shows everybody what it looks like. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over the AA, and I can see that that's called a text preferences button. And so inside the document, I get to make the changes that I want, the personalized changes that I want inside the document. I'm not having to go out to the Word settings or to my PC or my Mac settings or anything like that, or even to ease of access. It's all happening inside the document. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and I'm going to increase the text size, right? So I can increase and decrease the text size, and it's happening in real time. All right, now we were talking about dyslexia before, so spacing is really important. So I'm going to click that button there, and now it's increased the spacing. It's increased the spacing between the letters, between the words, and between the lines as well. And I can accentuate that by increasing my text size as well. Now, you may have heard of something called the dyslexia font. I'm not going to rubbish the dyslexia font. It's fine. It does what it's meant to do, but save your money, because we've got 3 very simple fonts which are part of Immersive Reader, which will do the same thing. Because what matters for the dyslexia font is spacing and that it's a simple, clear, concise font. So you've got Calibri, Sitka, and every primary teacher's favourite, Comic Sans. Secondary teachers don't get Comic Sans, but we do, don't we, primary teachers? So it's a very simple and clear font. You've got the ability to change your theme, so you can go into dark mode, or whatever the lighting is that your student is going to respond to better is here as well. And then we can also turn the source formatting on and off, bold, underline, italic, etc. Because for some of our students, that can be distracting, but for other of our students, it's important. It's part of the document. We want to make sure that the source formatting is there. So we can turn it on and turn it off. All right. So the first thing I did was I set my document to be the way that I wanted. All right. And now what happens is, and I'm going to get you to give me thumbs up or thumbs down according to sound. Hopefully the sound is working. Let's see how we go. All right. I'm a bit worried about that. Why we're not getting any sound. Apologies, guys. All right. So what's happening right now, and I don't know why you guys aren't hearing it. Actually, let me try and look in my device settings. Let's try it again. Let me know if you can couldn't share sound. Sorry guys, I'm just going to try and work this out because it does matter. Tell me if you can hear this.
Her. I wrestled her and I played soccer with her.
Fantastic. Look at that. All right, I'm not even technical. Okay, so what's happening is we've hit the play button and we're going to hear the document read to us in real time.
Last Christmas holidays, I played with my puppy Brandy. I sprayed water at her. I wrestled her and I played soccer with her. We sat down together. We said jokes to each other. We played and played until I had to go into the house and eat lunch.
All right, so hear how that's a really nice, natural sounding Aussie accent. All right, it's because it's reading the language pack on my device, or it's reading the language settings in my browser, and it's reading to me in a nice, simple, clear Aussie accent. Can you speed it up? Yes, you can. Can you slow it down? Yes, you can. All right. So, for example, one little girl I knew who was in grade 6. She didn't have any sort of cognitive impairment, but she was dyslexic. She listened to it this fast.
Last Christmas holidays, I played with my puppy Brandy. I sprayed water at her. I wrestled her and I played soccer with her. We sat down together. We said jokes to each other.
All right, now what's happening there is you notice that it's highlighting the words. So it's simulating the idea of you following along with your finger underneath, pointing to each and every word. All right, so it's imitating what a teacher would do. You don't need to read the entire document. You can just read the words that you need so we can scaffold, right?
Christmas. Played.
Okay. So she has the ability to leave that document, come back to the original. Okay, that's what that looks like. It's not made any changes to the original, but now when we come back into Immersive Reader, it's remembered the settings. All right, so again, I'm showing you what it looks like to build it out, but you don't have to do that every time. It will remember. Now the next thing we've got is our grammar. I'm just going to maximize that. Next thing I've got is my grammar options. All right, look at this. It will syllabify. All right, so it will take those multi-syllable words and it will break them down, right? It won't read them, but it will break them down like that for the student, at least visually. We are connected to the internet. This is all happening in real time. It's not something you need to prepare in advance. And every single student that's using this can set it and personalize it in the way that they want the document to look, and they can be completely different from each other, and that's not going to affect the original document, okay? We can also highlight our parts of speech, right? So I can highlight my nouns, and what's happening now is the artificial intelligence is going through and it's finding all the nouns and it's turned them green. All my verbs are in red, all my adjectives are in blue, and all my adverbs are in gold. However, I can change those colors, all right? So if I've got color differentiation issues, you know, the orange and red are too close to each other or whatever, you can change those and make them more suited to your student, or the student can make them more suited to themselves. The other thing is if you completely have trouble with color, you can show the labels instead or as well. And so now we can actually see that there. Now I want to show you something really cool, all right? Have a look at the word tag here. It's a verb, but look up here. Tag is a noun. All right. So what's happening is the artificial intelligence, this is where it gets really cool. The artificial intelligence is actually reading those parts of speech in context of the sentence and then identifying them. So when I played tag, which is the name of the game, it's a noun. And when she got to tag me, it's a verb. All right. So again, we're connected to the internet and we're using some powerful AIs. Okay, now I'm just going to turn the labels off because that can be a little bit distracting for the demo. But what I'm going to do next is come over here to the reading preferences button. And when I click on reading preferences, actually first I'm just going to make this just a little bit smaller, because when I click on reading preferences, remember we talked about hiding the parts of the page? I can show 5 lines, 3 lines, or right down to 1 line. I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger again. Okay. So reducing distractions even further. All right, so now when I hit play.
Last Christmas holidays, I played with my puppy Brandy. I sprayed water at her. I wrestled her and I played soccer with her.
All right, so that's what that looks like there. Now someone else was saying picture prompts. We heard you. Okay, so what we've done is we turn the picture dictionary on, and now when I click on those words that I am struggling with, all right, so a word like holidays, okay, I can see it and hear it, but I also get picture prompts.
Holidays.
All right, or something like sat.
Sat. Jokes.
Okay, so not every word is going to have a picture dictionary prompt, but there's more and more being added all the time. And for those of you that know, that's powered by Boardmaker, okay, which is quite strong in the space. So that's what that looks like as well. Now, each student is going to have different needs, right? So this is what we talked about personalizing. So some students are not going to be using to read the entire document, right? Play the entire document. They maybe just be going individual words, whereas other students have different needs. So you personalize this, and maybe one time you sit with the student, all right, and you show them how to use this, you get them to personalize things, etc. They learn how to use it, and then you don't have to build these resources for these students anymore. They do it for themselves, or the technology does it for them, okay? But one more scenario. So I've got a little Korean boy in my class, all right? He's come over to us from Seoul. His English is actually quite good, but he's definitely EAL, all right? Now what happens for him is when he turns on Immersive Reader, he can choose a language, right, to have translation. So let's come down here to Korean, okay? He clicks the Korean there, and then what happens is now when he comes and plays, now when he comes and reads, he'll come to a word that he struggles with, all right? He clicks on it. He gets English and Korean. And he also gets the picture dictionary prompts, right? So down. Okay? And he gets the picture dictionary prompts as well. Now, he may need a higher level of support to the point where he needs the entire document translated. So we click on that. And we can see that it's translated into Korean. Here's my original. So it's not just about English. We can be doing Korean to English, Korean to Japanese, Japanese to Arabic. There's a whole heap of different things that we could do. But we can go backwards and forwards between the original and our translation. Now you notice that Korean has got parts of speech. Okay, so it's highlighted the parts of speech. It's found that in Korean. Not every language has got every feature. Okay, so you might go in and you may be, wanting to look at some sort of African dialect or something, and it doesn't even read aloud. Okay, but some of them have more features than others. But have a listen to this.
지난 크리스마스 휴가 나는 내 강아지 브랜디와 함께 연주. 나는 그녀에게 물을 뿌려 했다. 나는 그녀를 씨름했고 나는 그녀와 함께 축구를 했다.
Now, I know most of you don't speak Korean. Maybe there's a couple in there that do, but it's reading the punctuation, right? So you listen. She gets to an end of a sentence and she stops and she pauses like she would if she was really reading it.
지난 크리스마스 휴가 나는 내 강아지 브랜디와 함께 연주. 나는 그녀에게 물을 뿌려 했다.
So it's a very natural sounding Korean voice. Again, some of the voices are stronger than others, and it really depends on which voice that you want to use. Now, do we have anybody in our group today who speaks a foreign language really well? Come off mute if you do, because I want to give this a little bit of a test on your language. So you just need to come off mute, shout out a language that you speak. Come on, we can't be this non-diverse.
I can do Italian.
You can do Italian. Very good. Okay, so let's jump in here. Find Italian. There it is. Okay, so let's translate the entire document. Now, before we do, actually not before we do, let's have a look at it first and say, last Christmas holidays, I played with my puppy Brandy. I sprayed water at her, I wrestled her, played soccer with her. Let's translate that into Italian and let's have a listen.
Le ultime vacanze di Natale ho giocato con il mio vicino Brandy. Le ho spruzzato dell'acqua. L'ho combattuta e ho giocato a calcio con lei. Ci siamo seduti insieme, ci siamo detti barzellette, abbiamo giocato e giocato fino a quando non dovevo andare a casa e pranzare.
Okay, the cool thing about Italian is we can actually go into a male voice as well.
Pranzare. Quando ho finito di mangiare sono tornato fuori e le ho mostrato un libro chiamato Flubber.
So in terms of its pronunciation, in terms of its translation, what would you give it out of 10?
Okay. Unmute him.
That was for you. What would you give it out of 10?
Are you getting that? Dialing manually? Oh, you've dropped out. Sorry, we dropped out.
Oh, did you?
What was the question?
Did you hear the translation?
Yeah, we heard that.
Yep. So what would you give it out of 10?
It was good. It was accurate. It was just, in my mind, for a non-native speaker, really fast. However,
Oh, you could slow that down, remember?
oh, perfect.
Slow that down. Yep.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so it was. Yeah, and I know that the Italian translation is actually almost perfect. And in that context, it is perfect. Yeah. So it depends on the language, right? It depends on some of our languages have more features and have a more natural sounding voice, etc. Any questions about that? About Immersive Reader? Okay. So then, guys, it's time for a little bit of hands-on. All right. So I'm going to give you about 10 or so minutes to go in and have a bit of a play. Now, again, how do we find Immersive Reader? What we do is we come, remember, we're online, okay? So we're not going into Word, because some of you are going to say to me, I can't find this in Word. No, we are online. So we're in our browser and we come to office.com. That was my teacher voice. Sorry if you felt patronized. We come to office.com and then we're going to click on Word, okay, which is living over here, and we're going to start a new blank document. All right. Then after we've started that blank document, what I want you to do is I want you to come in here and I want you to type 4 or 5 sentences. All right. Put it in paragraph form, describe the room, tell me what you had for breakfast today. Doesn't matter. All right. This is on your document, not on mine. I'm not inviting you to this space. All right. And then we're going to come into, after we've done that, we come into view and we turn on Immersive Reader. And you can have a play with the settings, set it up, etc. All right. So I'm going to make sure everyone's muted because we don't want to hear everyone's Immersive Reader coming through their microphone. But that's what we're going to do, guys, for the next probably, I'll give you 10 minutes. So that's going to take us through till 12:30 actually, I'll give you 15. And if we get bored, we can come back a little bit early. But let's go through to 12:30 my time, okay? And have a bit of a play with that. And if you get stuck, come off mute and I'll try and help you. Kate asked me, how do I get the Aussie accent? Just make sure that you've got your Australian accent set in your browser. Okay, so if you're using Chrome or Edge or whatever you're using, just make sure that you've got your language set to Australian English, and then that should change it. And then maybe turn it off and turn it back on again, the browser that is, and then you should be able to hear the Aussie accent. All right, how to do that? You'll just need to go into your settings and change that in there.
Troy.
You've got someone else with sound on, so someone needs to, whoever's next to you needs to turn the sound off on their machine.
Yeah, she's doing that now. Sorry, I was able. I was able to change the accent a bit easier through the translate section. So I don't know if that will help other people.
Yeah,
so,
but it won't change your the original.
Yeah,
So,
it doesn't. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
I just played it and it played in Australian English, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
100% that'll work, but the easier, more lasting one is just change your language in your browser settings. But thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it.
No worries.
I'm going to give you about 5 more minutes, guys. I'm going to give you till 12:25 my time. So no hurry. Just please have a bit of a play around with it. Make sure that you're across, where to find it, how to use it. Come off mute if you want to ask any questions. Okay, guys, very good. Let's keep moving. So if you're still playing around with Immersive Reader, just maybe close that for now and come back to it later. You own it. You've got access to this ongoing, but let's talk about a few more things. So some of the things that we've seen with Immersive Reader is if we can give it some mainstream application, there's less stigma attached to it, right? So what I'm saying is if we can use it with all our students for a variety of different reasons, then when some of our other kids are using it for, you know, sort of more diagnosable stuff or more challenging stuff or even stuff that's maybe more stigmatizing for them, it's not going to be so standout, right? But that aside, these are still really good ways to use it with everyone else in the class anyway. So things like sight word recognition is what we've seen, that students actually, it becomes a lot more fun. There's picture dictionary, it can read to them, etc. So this is the way that we've seen it used in a really nice way. It's not going to solve the problem of sight word and rote learning, but it's another tool to add to your arsenal of ways to address that. And I was an early years teacher for a really long time, and we're always looking for cool ways to teach sight words. Listening posts and independent reading stations, those of you that are old enough to remember, they're back. And they can be used with the students sitting there with the original book in front of them, right? So just because, you know, we can use all that cool Immersive Reader stuff, 100% we can, and they can be following along on the page, or they could be holding the actual book, right, and reading along whilst the voice is, you know, is reading the story to them, etc. However you want to use it. But they can, you know, be using it in the same way you used to use cassettes and CD-ROMs, and you're not tied to individual publisher materials. In other words, you can just, you know, type text straight into a Word document, and then that can be read to the student. And the cool thing is they can do their own, right? They can build their own books, and then, you know, putting in an Immersive Reader, and kids can come along and listen to that, to it read to them, etc. Talk about it being an empowering tool. Okay, so one of the studies that was carried out, one of the teachers commented that it evens the playing fields for kids who are struggling readers. It allows them to feel more like independent learners, not depending on the teacher, not depending on the peers, right? So we talked before about, you know, pairing them up with another student, or the aide comes and sits with them, or they get pulled out of class, whatever. Let's try and reduce that stigma, right? So a student can sit there with the same software, the same hardware, headphones on, and be getting that support without another student supporting them, without another teacher supporting them. And so that can help to reduce stigma. Also, it can be used, here's a more mainstream application, as again, is that regardless of skill level, we can access content aimed at a higher reading level, right? So we may be in year 7 doing some research, and we're accessing Britannica or whatever it is that we're accessing, and the language is quite high. We can turn on Immersive Reader and get that support. We don't need to always be using it for kids with, in inverted commas, challenges. We all have challenges. Now, remember at the beginning of today, I said to you, if you wanted to get the resources, you could go to that link, and let me just quickly take you back to that, because there it is there, aka.ms/today's stuff. A lot of the links and everything that I've been building, that I've been showing you today, can be accessed through that. But also I've got those studies that I'm about to mention. Those studies are available in that download link. All right. So the first one being the British Dyslexia Association and Noel Hill, which is a school with a strong dyslexia program. They carried out their own studies, and they found that 16 out of 18 children showed improved behaviour, okay, and 11 out of 16 saw their reading comprehension scores get better, statistically significant. And those studies are there for you to access. Another one that was carried out by a company called RTI, another third-party research, so this isn't Microsoft study, these are other, found that when they did studies from 4th to 12th grades, they saw reading comprehension scores improved, writing improved, non-cognitive processes improved, etc. You can get that study as well in that download link, or you can click on the link here when you download the slides. But we're seeing it has a direct impact, right? It's not just Microsoft saying, hey, this is a cool tool. Studies are showing it. So where do we find Immersive Reader? Now, this is really important to note. So if you are distracted, stay with me, boys and girls, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, because this is important to note. Now, first of all, it's in Office 365, which you've all got, okay, and which all your students have got access to. and that's why you're a part of the STP. But we do have a free version in Office Online. So you can go to office.com, sign in with your school ID, you'll get to Office 365. But if you sign in with a personal ID, you get taken to what's called Office Online, which is a scaled down version, but it's still there. It's still there in Word, it's still there in OneNote, etc. And it's also default inside Teams, okay? So when you're using Teams, when you're using the chat, when you're using other things inside Teams like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, it's there as well, okay? So it's there for you. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where it's available in what tools, and this grows all the time. So the first thing is we see it in OneNote. Okay, so if you're on a Windows machine, it's in the OneNote app, whichever one you're using, and it's also in OneNote on the browser. So regardless of what device you're on, if you go into OneNote on the browser, you can 100% be using Immersive Reader. Now, when we're talking about Word, which is what we were looking at before, let me just come back here because I do need to make this clear to you. It is available in Word Online. There's a version of it in the installed version of Word for Windows 10, but what I just showed you is in Word Online. Now, if you're on a PC, sorry, if you're on a Mac or if you're on an iPad, you must go through the browser, okay, because it's not in the Word apps, all right, for your Apple devices. Keep that in mind. But we have built it into the dedicated apps for OneNote if you're on an iPad or a Mac. So if you're from an Apple school, please note that it's not going to be in the Word app, but it will be in the iPad app and it will be in the Mac app for OneNote. All right, but you can also go through the browser if you want to use it in Word. We signed the Made by Dyslexia Pledge in 2018, and we have also partnered with Code Red Dyslexia Network in Australia. So we do a lot in this space. We promote their programs and their events, and they also help us promoting Immersive Reader. So if you don't know about Code Red Dyslexia Network, that's an Australian organisation. Please Google them, have a look, find out all about them. They're doing some really good stuff, and we're proud to support them. All right, now I'm going to come back and talk to you about some other where it's available and other tools as well. But first, I want to show you what's called Microsoft Lens. It used to be called Office Lens, and this is a very cool tool. And we've built Immersive Reader into this as well. So first of all, we're going to start. I'm going to show you this video. It's going to talk you through Lens and some of the cool things it does. This is free for your iPhone, for your iPad, for your Android tablet, and for your Android phone. Okay, but you can sign in with your school ID and connect it all in with your Office 365 experience. But let me share this with you first. Can I get thumbs up or thumbs down if there's no sound for those that have the camera on?
Hey everyone, Kevin here. Today I'm going to show you my favorite free document scanning app that works on both iPhone and Android. It's called Microsoft Lens. So what do I like about this app? Well, first off, it's completely free, but it also produces exceptional looking document scans. Along with scanning documents, you can use it to extract the text from a document. You can even have it read the document to you, and you can use it for other things like taking a photo of a whiteboard, a business card, or just those photos if you want to use some of it indoor photos. Alright, let's jump on the phone, and first off, I'll show you how you can get this app. Today, I'm using an iPhone, and once again, this works on either an iPhone or on an Android phone. To get the Microsoft Lens app, on an iPhone, open up the App Store, and on an Android phone, open up the Play Store. Within the store, search for Microsoft Lens, and you should see a result here for Microsoft Lens. If you don't have the app yet, go ahead and either get it or install it, and once you have it, click on Open. Once you finish installing the Microsoft Lens app, go ahead and lock the app. That is got you on the main screen here, and right now it's popping up saying capture a document, or basically scan a document. That's the default view down below. On the document, you want on your phone as that document. And right here, I have a letter from the publication Nerd Monthly. This is one of my life's accomplishments. I've always wanted to be featured in this publication. So I want to make sure I preserve this moment by scanning in this document. Now right here, I'll aim my phone at the text, and I'll click on the white button to capture it. This is now scanned my document. I can see it right here. On this screen, I can crop my image. So there's a little bit of extra space on the bottom. Here I can drag the bottom up if I just want to tighten these up just a little bit. Now overall, this looks pretty good, so I'll click on confirm. Here now, I have a preview of what my document looks like. And down below on the bottom, I can add additional pages to my screen. And to the right of that, I also have a set of filters. Let me click on that to see what we can do. This opens up filters over here. Here you'll see if I click on none on the left-hand side, this is just what a standard picture would have looked like on your phone. And over here, we have all these different filters you can choose from. Now, the document one produces really nice results. When I click on that, it really cleans up the background of this document. This is now a pretty high-quality scan. Here I can go through and look at a few of the other ones, but I think document works the best. I'll minimize this. Back on the main controls, I can also click down on more, and here I have some additional tools. I can also rotate the document. Here I can even ink on the document, or I can add text on top of it. Now, I don't want to change this document at all. I think it's pretty much just the section as is. I'll click up here to minimize this control. Now, I'm all ready to go, so I'll click on done. This now brings me to the export screen, and right at the top, I can title my document in. Here, I'll just call it Learn Monthly. Down below, I can also choose how I want to save this. I could save it directly to the photo library on my phone. I could save it as a PDF. Here I could save that on my phone, or I could put it directly onto OneDrive. If I go back, I can save it to these different apps, and then I can also decide if I want to share it. I could send it in email, and there's also something really cool called Immersive Reader, where this app will read the document to you. Let's take a quick peek to see how that works. I'll click on it. This document needs to be Immersive Reader. So now it's taking all of my text in the document and it's extracted it from the document. And I can now have the app read this document to me. If I go down to the settings here on the bottom, I can choose if a female reads to me or a male. Now, I prefer having a female voice read to me. Right up above, I could also select the voice speed. That all looks good, and let's test this out. Let me click on the play icon. Let me check that out. It reads the document to me. How cool is that? Let's go back to the previous screen. Back on the previous screen, I'll simply save my document to my photo library. And here now I can see a very high quality document scan in my files. Back on the main screen of the app, I can also capture documents from other sources. Right over here, I can click on this icon to access all the media on my device. This drops us in the media view, and here you can see all of the photos on your phone. So let's say, for example, that maybe you took a photo of a document just using your phone, and you'd like to apply some of the Microsoft Lens filters to it. You can still select that photo and then run it through the filters. And here, looking at my pictures, you probably noticed that my son is sitting here in a Vigor. Now, my son kept asking me again and again for a Vigor, so as a good dad, I caved in and I got him a Vigor. Back on the main screen, you can also capture other sources. Here, for instance, you can capture a whiteboard image, and there are some filters specific to a whiteboard. Moving to the right, there are also different actions. Here, for instance, you can extract text from a document, and you can even extract data from a table. Let's test out extracting text from this document. Let's click on this button right now.
Okay, so the cool thing about that is that it will grab photographs of book pages, for example, or handouts or things that the student is using, and using their iPad or their iPhone or their Android device, they can actually grab that document and then turn on Immersive Reader inside the device, okay? And Immersive Reader will read the photograph, okay? So all this guy had was a photograph of his handout or a photograph of his letter, and that was actually read to him like that, all right? So I really want to stress that this is actually a big part of the, as we say in tech, it's a big part of the story, okay? So here's a student, okay? She's struggling with a page in a book, right? And so again, it's about personalizing. So the teacher doesn't need to create a special resource for her. Instead, using her iPhone or using her iPad, she's able to have an experience exactly like this, right? So she's on her phone, she takes a photo, turns on Immersive Reader inside that device, and there she goes.
Would not take the garbage out.
All right, so it's full Immersive Reader, text, spacing, font, themes, syllables, parts of speech, even translation.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Picture dictionary, it's all there.
Someone. Y antes su papá gritaba y gritaba. Ella simplemente nos sacaba la basura.
Okay, so what happens sometimes is, you know, people see this stuff and they say, okay, that's great, but I still have to build it all into the computer. Actually, no, you don't. All right. So again, where do we find Office Lens? We find Office Lens in our App Store if we're on Apple. It's on Play Store if we're on our Android. Okay. And you can speak to your techie at your school and get that pushed out to your fleet of iPads or get it onto the devices. Also, parents will love this tool because, you know, it's something that they can use at home with their children as well. Any questions about Office Lens? Were you guys saying you weren't getting good sound then? Yeah, Rosemary, did you have a question? Come off mute.
No, Alana and I were both called out for a bit of an emergency, so we weren't here for that.
I can't hear you, Rosemary.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking to the wrong speaker.
Right.
Alana and I were called out for a bit of an emergency, so we've missed the last 5 or 10 minutes, so we apologise for that.
No worries. Yeah, you can access the recording afterwards anyway.
Yeah, we will do. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for letting me know. Any comments or questions about Office Lens or about Immersive Reader in Office Lens? No? Okay. All right. So another place that we find Office Lens is we find it in the Edge browser. Okay, so the Edge browser is Microsoft's new browser. If you are still using Internet Explorer, please understand that that's end of life. Game over for Internet Explorer. We're not using that anymore. We're using one called Edge. Okay, and we also need to make sure that we're using the most up-to-date version of Edge. It looks like this. This is the icon. Okay, and just make sure that you've downloaded the most up-to-date version because otherwise the things that I'm going to share with you, you're going to say, hey, mine's not doing it, and that's why. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into the Edge browser. So that's what I'm in here. I'm actually inside the Edge browser. I'm going to open up a tab and I'm going to take us into that Phases of the Moon article that I use all the time. So here it is here. It's on National Geographic Kids, right? So what happens is, I don't know if you noticed, but Immersive Reader will actually strip the graphics away when we used it in Word or we use it in OneNote. But when we're using it in web pages, we don't want graphics to be stripped away, right? Because graphics are a big part of websites. So we've made sure that it's slightly different in this space. So when I come into the Edge browser and I've come to the page that I want to use Immersive Reader on, when I look at this page here, you can see that there's so many colors, there's buttons, there's graphics, there's ads along the side, the text is disrupted by pictures. There's just so much going on here, all right? So thinking that this is a website, we want it to do different things, all right? So what we've done is we've built the Immersive Reader button that lives up here in the URL bar, okay? So I click on that and it turns on Immersive Reader, okay? Now it doesn't strip the browser because we're still in the browser and we need to be able to use the functions and bits and pieces in here. But the first thing that we notice is we've got Read Aloud.
The phases of the moon. Why does the moon change shape?
Okay, and it's highlighting each word as we go. We've got voice options over here so we can speed it up and slow it down, but we can also change our accent over here quite easily inside the browser. We've also got the ability to change our text size and our spacing, just like we saw before. And we've also got the themes in there too. We've got the grammar tools so we can syllabify, and we can also highlight our nouns, our verbs, our adjectives and our adverbs, and we can show or remove those labels if we want as well. And then we've got the reading preferences. So we've got the line focus, so we can go to 1, 3, and 5 lines, just like we can in the other version of Immersive Reader. We've got the picture dictionary, okay? So when I hover over a word, I'm going to see a little, why is that not doing that for me? It's great when it all works. But when we hover over the word, we'll be able to click on that word and we'll be able to bring that up as the picture dictionary. And also we've got the ability to translate the entire document as well. All right. So a minute ago, the web page looked like this. Okay. But now that I've set my settings, when I click Immersive Reader, it's going to bring it in and remember the way that I've set it, right? Now, the cool thing is it's stripped the ads and stripped all those colors, but it knows that these graphics here are part of the article, so it's not stripped those away, all right, which is really, really cool. Now, a couple of things I want to point out to you. I've turned Immersive Reader off. What happens sometimes is you will come into some websites where the Immersive Reader is seen as ad stripping software and it won't allow it to function, right? So the website will actually have code built in to stop it from working. But what you can do is you can still use Immersive Reader, even though you can't turn it on up here. You can highlight pieces of text, then right click, and there's Immersive Reader here. Now I could just have it, I could just have that read aloud to me, or I could translate, for example. But in this case, I want to open Immersive Reader just for that portion of text. Okay, and there it is there. So that's a good way to think if you don't want the whole document highlighted or Immersive Reader isn't working because of that ad stripper software, you can just highlight the piece of text. You wish you could. Then you right click and then we use Immersive Reader there. Okay, so that's what it looks like in the Edge browser. Any questions about that? Nope. Okay, cool. Hopefully you guys are still with me. Okay, now the other one is forms. All right, now if you don't know much about forms, forms is a tool for creating surveys, but it also does assessments as well. So if I come in here, come into forms, I've created an assessment inside Microsoft Forms. Let's let that open. I've called it my Office 365 summative assessment. Okay, now this will mark when there's a definitive answer, it will self-mark, etc. But when we come into the preview, so you can see here, right, this is what it looks like to the student on a computer. All right, so they've got their questions, and it's very, very text heavy. You can see what it looks like on a phone as well. There it is there. All right, but what happens is if I hover over a question, the little Immersive Reader button starts to appear, right? So for example, I've got a true or false question here. The student can't read it. They hover over this, click the Immersive Reader button, and it's going to remember my settings because I'm on the same device, and it's going to read that question to me.
2. Microsoft 365 apps can be installed on your laptop. 1 point. True. False. End of question. Close the reader to input your answer dot.
Okay, and then I come back and I can input my answer. I can say that's true, boom, and off we go. All right, so that's what it looks like in Forms. So that means that you will get a lot of support. Students will get a lot of support if you start to build assessments into here. All right, any questions about Forms before we move on? Cool. Okay, it's also in Outlook for the web, so you can have Immersive Reader reading your emails. Now you think about those of you that are in secondary and upper primary, you do a lot of correspondence with students on email. The fact that they can now have the Immersive Reader experience on their emails is phenomenal. That is in Outlook for the web. All right, so we must be in our Office 365. We'll go to office.com. And so we're not talking about Outlook installed on our machine. We're talking about Outlook here in Office for the web. All right, so that's there as well. Those of you that are aware of Minecraft Education Edition, Minecraft traditionally does not speak, right? I've got my dog sniffing around here. It must be lunchtime. And we have built Immersive Reader into Minecraft Education Edition. So you can see here, when I come into the Education Edition, I've got a character that's speaking. Traditionally, it was just text, but I click down here on the Immersive Reader button. It starts up my Immersive Reader experience. And now what a moment ago was just text now has the full Immersive Reader experience, read aloud, translation, everything. So that's inside Minecraft Education Edition. We've even put the pictures, right? The picture dictionary, we've even got some of the Minecraft tools and stuff inside, and Minecraft characters inside as picture dictionary prompts as well. PowerPoint Online. Okay, so PowerPoint in the browser now has Immersive Reader. It will be coming soon to the full version of PowerPoint as well. And it's inside Teams, right? So those of you that are using Teams for not Teams calling, but we're talking the Teams and for the chat and that kind of thing, let me show you what I mean. So I'll just come into a team. Just give me a moment to load that up. Sorry about this. I'm working from home. Obviously, there's a lot of people also doing the same. It's slowing my internet down. Okay, so when I am here inside a Teams chat, all right, or inside a post inside Teams, so I'm going to come in here to this one, okay? And you can see over here, we've got some text and bits and pieces. When I hover, I get my ability to throw my emojis, but I've got my 3 dots over here, my ellipses. I'm going to turn on Immersive Reader, and the chat message will be read to me, and I have the full Immersive Reader experience inside the chat inside Teams as well. So we're building Immersive Reader more and more into tools. It's not just to be used, you know, in literacy. It can be used to support literacy right across different tools and across different subjects as well. Now, the other thing is, because we have, you know, OneNote inside Teams and Forms inside Teams and Word inside Teams, it means that we don't need to be building out these resources specifically. All we have to do is make sure that it's available inside Teams, and then the student can personalize their own experience themselves. All right. Some of these third-party companies have started to build Immersive Reader into their tools as well. So if you've got a tool that you use all the time, you can reach out to your to the publisher and say, hey, could you put Immersive Reader into this? This would be really helpful for our students, and it's free to these publishers. So when you grab these slides, we've got an All About Immersive Reader page, which you can share with families and share with parents, share with your colleagues that aren't here today. So when you download these slides, you can click on this link, come into All About Immersive Reader and find out all about Immersive Reader. Okay, so we're going to have a bit of a reflection point, and then we're going to go into our lunch break. All right, so we've got about 6 or 7 minutes left. So what I'd like you to do is, if you've got someone in your that's working with you today, please do this together. Otherwise, do it by yourself. That's fine. But 2 reflection points. What are some of the ways you might use Immersive Reader with your students? Okay, so you might be thinking, hey, I'm going to use it for this student, that student. And does Immersive Reader change the way you think about technology and accessibility for your students? All right, how so? Remembering this is right across the Microsoft stack. This is not just for students. They can take this with them when they go into the workforce or university or whatever it is that they're doing. So hopefully it's going to deeply impact what you think about technology in the classroom. All right, so guys, what we're going to do now is I'm going to give you this 6 minutes for reflection. Have a bit of a play with Immersive Reader if you want. We're going to come back at 1:30. All right, 1:30 Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane time. For the rest of you, please do your little time adjustment, but we'll see you in that half an hour. Enjoy your lunch. Make sure you get up and move away from your device. Don't sit in front of your machine. And then we'll come back and we're going to talk about writing, right? We're going to be quite quick with that, but I'm also going to take you through and I'm going to share with you a lot of the resources that are available for you for training others, telling the parents, telling students, etc. Okay, so if you've got a question, please fire away now. Otherwise, I'll see you at 1:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. up or thumbs down and let me know. Otherwise, it's not going to make a lot of sense to us. So let's see how we go.
I'll be showing an end-to-end demo of the new reading progress in Teams. I'm here in a 4th grade class and we're going to go to assignments. And we'll go here and click the create assignment button. We'll give our assignment a title and some instructions. Now we'll click add resources. For those of you that are using the private beta, you're going to see reading progress enabled right here. Now I'm going to click this. Now these are the different settings for the reading passages. The first thing to do is upload your reading passage. Now right now we only support English. We're going to be adding more and more languages in the future, but for now in the private beta it's English only. And you have to use a Word document. And just a note, we are adding PDF support, so you'll be able to upload a PDF very soon. And later in the summer, we're going to have some sample content to choose from as well. But for now, you have to upload a Word document, so I'll do that really quickly. There's my Word document attached. Then you can enter the reading level. So for example, I can enter anything I want. If I have reading levels A through Z, I can enter J. If you have a different reading level system, this is yours to choose from. So enter whatever system that you use for that reading level. You can set genre, so in this case it's going to be nonfiction. Number of attempts, so by default it's unlimited, but I could set, hey, I only want them to try it 4 times, I don't want them to do it unlimited, but I will leave this as unlimited. And then pronunciation sensitivity, I like to call this the picky dial. How picky did you want the software to be? If you're going to use auto detect to listen to the students read, you can set how sensitive it is. So for example, if I have really young readers, I might want to set this to less sensitive. If I have much more experienced readers, I could set it to more sensitive. We'll leave it at standard default. Also note, I can change this pronunciation sensitivity after the student reads as well. So it doesn't have to only be beforehand, so you can tweak it afterwards and I'll show how that works. Lastly, require video. You don't have to have the student have video, you can have audio only. So right here it says selecting no gives the students the choice to submit audio only. So if I set that to no, then the student would record their audio out loud and submit it. But I will leave it to yes, so they'll record video and audio. And we're ready to attach this, so click attach. Now the passage is attached. I could give points, I could add a rubric. I'm going to keep it simple here, and it's going to go out to my whole 4th grade class. Again, with Teams, you could say I just want to send it to certain students, but I'm going to leave it to all students, and I will click assign. Now I'll switch over to the student and show what that looks like on the student side. Now we're showing the student side, and I'm going to go down here, and here's that assignment, geography. Open that up, and you're going to see a special little icon next to geography. I will click this. Now the first time that this runs on the student side, they will have to click allow so they can allow permissions to the camera, the microphone, and the speakers. So when I click allow, that will turn on the camera and it'll test the audio and video. Now we have Zoe here, and she's going to start reading this passage. One other thing, we have immersive reader technology, so Zoe can change the way the page looks so it's more comfortable for her to read. So we're going to quickly show what that looks like, and then Zoe will start reading.
Let's go! The study of Earth's landforms is called physical geography. Landforms can be mountains and valleys. They can also be glaciers or rivers. People need water to drink. They also need it for washing. Through history, people have settled near fresh water.
Now Zoe's done with the reading. She can click the little play button on her video to watch and listen to herself read.
The study of Earth's landforms is called physical geography.
She can also click the Start Over button if she wants to give it another try, but in this case, she's all done. She's going to click I'm finished, and that'll upload the video. Now the video is uploaded and attached to this reading progress assignment, and now just like a normal Teams assignment, I'll go in the upper right and click Turn In. Now we'll switch back to the educator view and show how the review student work portion works. I'm signed in back as the educator, and I've switched over to assignments, and here are the ones that I made. I'll open this one up, and now I'm going to review the student work. So I'm going to click on this one right here. Now we're in the teacher review experience. This is the normal SpeedGrader view on the right-hand side, but we've replaced everything else with our reading progress experience. You see the passage here, and it's marked up. You can see the words per minute right here. There's the accuracy rate, the number of attempts, the level, and the number of words in the passage. By default, we've turned on auto detect, and that is our speech process that listens for mispronunciations, omissions, and insertions. And very soon, we're going to add repetitions as well as self-corrections into the auto detection. That's not quite rolled out yet, but it will be soon. A really important note, you don't have to use auto detect. I can turn this off. Many educators think that they have to use auto detect. You don't. You can totally turn it off and you can manually mark things up. But we're going to show it with auto detect first, and then I will show it with auto detect off. Here I am in auto detect mode, and you can see also that I can drop down the pronunciation sensitivity. I can still change it after the fact, but we're going to leave it right here. Now I can play the video of Zoe reading.
The study of Earth's landforms is called physical geography.
Now you can see it marked physical as a mispronunciation. So it auto-detected that Zoe said that word incorrectly. I'll hit play again.
Landforms can be mountains and valleys. They can also...
Now maybe I'm going to hit pause and I want to jump down to region here. And that's been flagged as a mispronunciation. If I click on a word, I can choose jump to word and watch what happens. So I can jump right to that word and see the video and hear it. Maybe there was another word like history. I click here and maybe that was correct. I can say mark is correct and it will unflag it. We also detect omissions. So in this case, I see that it looks like she skipped a few words here. Let's see what happened. I will click on borders and choose jump to word.
Borders, freshwater sources also in...
So it looked like she skipped those 3 words. So that was automatically flagged by our speech API. I could also drop down the pronunciation sensitivity and make it standard, and you can see things change or even more sensitive. So it's really easy to see how that changes when you change the sensitivity. Another nice thing is I can make the video full screen. So I'll hit play.
Influence where people settle, people need water to drink. They also need it.
So I can go full screen or I can go back to regular size here. And then, like I mentioned before, you can turn off auto detect. Maybe you want to just watch the video and listen and mark things up. Let's turn off auto detect. Now I can go through and just listen to it manually.
The study of Earth's landforms is called physical geography.
I can click here, mispronunciation.
Landforms can be mountains and valleys.
And I can go through and maybe, here was an insertion and, maybe down here there was an omission. So you can mark this up manually, and you can see that the accuracy rate updates automatically and the mispronunciations, omissions, and insertions also updates. And just to reiterate, we are adding repetitions as well as self-corrections into our auto detect in the near future. Right now, this only works for English, but we hope to roll it out to more languages in the future. It really focuses on American English right now. We're looking to add Great Britain English and Australian English in the near future. I can add feedback just like I would in a normal Teams assignment. So I could say, great job, Zoe. I could also add other details if I want for things for her to work on. And I can click return just like I would in a normal assignment. And I can drop this down and I can use the speed grader in the same way that I normally would in Teams. The last piece I'm going to show are insights and analytics. So all of this data is captured and put into our insights tool, which I will demo next. Now I've closed the assignment and we're going to speed ahead. So I have 2 different reading passages that I put out and different people have already responded to them and turned them in. And we're going to add the Insights tab. So I go to the plus menu here, click it, and now search for Insights if you don't already have it installed. There we go, and click Insights. Now click Save. I've already added the Insights tab here, so we're going to click it to drill in. Here I'm in Insights, and you're going to see it's temporary. There's a reading progress link. This will be expanded into a real card later, but just click that reading progress link to drill in. Now we're in the main reading progress charts area. And this is our first rev, expected to improve over time, but we have average words per minute, and right now it's all students. So you can see here 105 words per minute here, and the average for the class, the next reading passage was 118 words per minute. If you go down here, you'll see average accuracy rate, and I can hover over and get more details. So mispronunciations, omissions, insertions, and accuracy rate. Now this is across the whole class, so these are averages. I'll show how to drill in next. If I go to all students, I drop this down, and maybe I want to go down here to Alex Wilbur at the bottom. Now you can see it's just for Alex, and now I can drill in and see how Alex is doing. I can see Alex's accuracy rate and compare these over time. And you can filter on different dates. So last 30 days, 60 days. Again, we only have 2 data points in here, so it's quite simple. But you can also, if you've added reading levels, so when you add in that reading level, if I want to filter on reading level J versus reading level K, I can do that. In this case, J, there was only 1 data point, so it's right there. But if you had multiple passages, you can imagine I can go in and say, you know, show me out of all my students, filter on the J readers. And it will then only filter for those. So that allows you to subdivide reading groups and look at those analytics across different groups, across different students, or across different time periods. You know, I check Susanna here, and she'll have a little bit different data. Okay, her average words per minute was going down over these 2 passages. The last dashboard is the word cloud. And this shows a cloud of all the most mispronounced words, and the bigger the word, the more mispronunciations. So I can look across my entire class. You can see here physical was mispronounced 10 times across this passage. And to get a sense of some of the other top words, I could drill in on a specific student if I wanted, or a certain set of students, or even pivot it by level. So this is really helpful for an educator to very quickly see, hey, what were some of the top challenging vocab words in that reading passage across my class, or limited to just a few people or a single person. So that is your full tour of reading progress in Teams. We really hope you try it out. We really look forward to your feedback, and we'll be having calls with the TAP program and others to gather continued educator feedback. We'll also be rolling out new features over the spring and summer, so watch for those, and we'll be sure to let you know about them. I'll be showing.
Helps if I come off mute. Okay, so when you get the slides, there's a whole heap of links there, including some of the research behind it, some other stories, the videos and other kinds of things if you wanted to share that out. Does anyone want to come off mute and ask any questions or make any comments about this? This is the latest, greatest things, hot off the presses, so I hope you enjoyed that. No? I'm hoping that's because you're amazed and you think it's great.
Sorry, Troy, yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
So what kind of time frame are we looking on this becoming embedded in here?
This month, it'll be released this month, and Australian accent will come out by the end of the year.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Richard, where are you from? What school?
Baronga Public School, so we're far western New South Wales, just over the border from Mildura.
So I can't give you an exact date when the because the department, because you guys are in what's called a central tenant, you have a large tenant, and the department controls what's released and what's not. So it will be released to the department this month. As to whether the department turns it on or not is a different story. So you'd have to reach out to maybe the Teach for Learning crew and ask them.
No worries. No, looks great though. Thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I love it, especially coming from an early years literacy background. Anybody else?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
It's Jacqueline Collegian. I'm from Marsden High School. Was just telling my colleague who's also online that I find this will be very useful and a good way of showing evidence of the progress and evidence to sort of play back later, even for the kids to go back and assess for themselves how far they've come. So I'm really liking that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that, Jacqueline. Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's all videoed. You know what I mean? You've got the analytics, but you can also show to a parent and say, and I mean, this is how it was when I was teaching. It was like, why isn't my son going on to level 15? His brother was at level 15 when he was, a year younger. It's like, well, here's you can show. Yeah. Powerful, yeah. The other thing that's cool about this is that an aide can facilitate it, but then the teacher can go back later and check the assessment and, can override the assessment if if the machine has said that was incorrect, the teacher can go back and just check that and, make sure that it's, and override it. The other thing that's cool is when you switch off the auto detect, you can go through and watch the video and mark that up yourself as a teacher and then still get all those analytics. which I think is really powerful, because, you know, some people look at it and go, oh, what if the artificial intelligence isn't doing as good a job? Fine, switch it off, but still get the benefit of all that analytics data in the way that it's compiled. Yeah, very cool.
Hi, sorry, can I just clarify, is that just to use through Teams at this stage?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say it will stay just through Teams.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No worries. Anybody else? No? Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk about writing support then. Writing support, there's actually quite a lot to say in this space, and just looking at the time, we've actually only got 40 minutes left, which is full on. But full on in terms of time. Let's talk first about Dictate. All right, so dictation or speech to text is available across multiple platforms, right? So you use it with Siri, you use it with Alexa, you use it with other things all the time. Not just voice commands, but actually getting the text down onto the page. So it allows students to speak into a device and the written text will appear in the program. It's a quick and easy way to create drafts, outlines or notes, or just get your thoughts onto text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you in, I'm going to show it to you now in the browser again. All right, so I'm going to create a new document here, new blank document. So I'm back inside Word Online, okay? So it doesn't matter whether I'm coming in on a PC or a Mac. As long as I've got my browser open, I can come in and I can experience this, you know, depending on how good my microphone is as well. All right, it's available in Word Online. It's also available in Word for Windows 10. I'm not quite sure if it's yet been rolled out to the Mac as yet. So looking in here, you can see here I am, I'm on the Home tab and I've got my Dictate button over here. Now what I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to turn it on and then I'm going to quickly turn it off. You see it's already starting to give me some suggestions. Now the reason I did that is because I just want to make sure that I've got my settings correct, and we're going to have a little bit of hands-on time, guys, or in this case hands-off. So just follow along with me, and then in a moment we will 100% jump in and have a play individually. So you see got dictation settings here. Now the first thing is I'm going to make sure that I'm on Australian English. Come down here, English Australia, which is still a preview language. I can see that my microphone is working here. I'm actually going to change my microphone to that. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I'll just get a thumbs up. Can you guys still hear me? Yep, fantastic. Okay. Do I want it to auto punctuate? Now, there's times where I do, but there's also times where I'm going to want to assess my students' ability to punctuate, right? So in this case, I'm going to leave it, I'm going to turn auto punctuation off. And do I want a profanity filter, right? Hopefully that's fairly clear. Now, the other thing that we've got over here is we've got the help window, which opens up. We'll come back and look at that in a minute. But what it does is it opens up basically your instructions, right, are right there. It's really easy to find and really easy to play around with. But we'll come back to that in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this nice and big so that you guys can see this in real time. I'm also going to come back over to here. Okay, are you ready? So I've put it on Aussie English. I also need to punctuate. Last Christmas holidays, I played with my puppy Brandy, full stop. I sprayed water at her, full stop. I wrestled her and I played soccer with her, full stop. We sat down together, comma. We said jokes to each other, comma. We played and played until I had to go into the house and eat lunch, full stop. I said to her, comma, open quotes, "You are amazing!" exclamation mark, close quotes. Okay, so when that was going, you were probably thinking, actually, I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller so we can see it all. Yeah, you're probably thinking, oh, that's not doing a great job, but actually we were connected to the internet. So it's happening in real time. The better the internet connection, the better the infrastructure, the better it's going to be. And I actually find it easier to look away when I'm doing it, because I look at it, because there's a slight lag, it can actually be a little bit distracting. The other thing I'm going to point out while I remember is low-cost devices without a high-quality microphone. You're going to need headsets, okay, and you're going to need a fairly decent headset, right? Now, that's not the software's problem, that's the hardware's problem, right? So the better your computer, the better microphone, you know, the less likely you are to need a headset. The other thing is lots of noise happening in the room, and it will pick it up. So you've got to be aware of the limitations of it. You need to be, if students are going to be using this, they need to be in a quiet-ish area. It doesn't have to be completely quiet, but a full class full of kids running around speaking, and it's not going to work. All right. So, you know, just a handful of kids or in the corner of a room or whatever. But you could see there that what it did was, because I was punctuating, right, it did a pretty good job. All right. I mean, that would probably be a capital, so I could go back and change that manually. But overall, it did a pretty good job. Once upon a time, you used to have to buy things like Drag and Dictate, etc., which you would have to pay money for. Nowadays, this is built in directly into the tools that we're all using at work and at school, etc., right? So Word and those kinds of tools. So over here, you can see we've got multiple languages that you can dictate into, but it's actually got commands now as well, right? So what sort of punctuation do you want to use? It's American, but also UK or Australian. We can say full stop, question mark, exclamation point, you know, open quotes, close quotes, those kinds of things are all there. You saw that a moment ago. Editing over here, you can do things like delete that, which is, you know, the last word, or you can say delete the last 5 words, or delete the last 5 sentences, for example. Delete a word, insert a space, backspace, etc. In there as well. We can do formatting commands, so you can bold things, italics things, underline, etc., strike through. And this grows all the time. This gets rolled out all the time. I used to demo this and none of this was here, and now all it is. I can start a list, so I can say things like start list, etc. I can add comments as well, so I can have side comments on a document. While dictating, I can pause the dictation, I can exit the dictation. This is all by voice. And I can also include symbols as well, right? So let's have a little bit of a play here. Let me just come down here, right? And some of these things are quite new, but we'll have a go. And we'll say, I'm going to show you some really cool things. Start list. Number 1, shopping. Next line, eating. Next line, smelling. Next line, making things up. Next line, having fun. Delete fun. A good time. Okay, so the more you use it, the more you will, you know, the better you'll get at it. It's not like Dragon where you have to train the voice. We've got artificial intelligences and all this sort of data that's being collected, which is making it better for everybody. The more you use it, the better it will get, but it's not like it's going to learn your voice. But what happens is you will learn the limitations of the device, and the students will as well. Did someone have a question then? I saw a hand raised. No? Okay. Now, scenario, right? Thinking about dictate. Dictate is available in Word. It's available in Outlook Online and Outlook for the web. It's available in PowerPoint. It's available in OneNote as well. But the scenario is when we use it together with Immersive Reader, it can do some amazing things, right? So a student that once upon a time couldn't access their own writing, right, or couldn't read back their own writing, can now use something like Dictate, and then they'd still be locked out because they can't read their own writing. And those of you that work with kids know that this happens all the time. They can write it, but then when it comes time to read it, they have trouble reading their own. So what they can do is they can use Dictate combined with Immersive Reader. So we just saw the dictation there. When I click View and come into Immersive Reader, now the student can actually have that Immersive Reader experience based on their own writing.
Having a good time. Last Christmas holidays, I played with my puppy Brandy.
Okay, so the combination of those two tools, using Dictate and then being able to go back, means that the aide and the teacher and the peers are doing less for the student. The student is independently getting their ideas down on paper, or onto the page, I should say, not on paper in this case. And also they're able to do their own editing, and they're able to hear their own writing read back to them. Okay, so they dictate in their own voice, then they use Immersive Reader to assist them in the editing and the revising process, and the technology does what once upon a time the aide needed to do. Okay, as I said, it's there in Outlook for the desktop app. So the scenario is the teacher, because we see we've got Read Aloud and Immersive Reader, so the teacher can send an email to the student can actually have that email read to them, and then dictate their email back to the teacher. So it's opening up a form of communication that once upon a time locked the student out. Now, just looking at the time, we've only got half an hour to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of fly through a little bit quickly and just talk to you a little bit about spell check, because spell check is actually quite matured. Just give me a moment here. I'm going to that there. Okay, so spell check once upon a time was actually nowhere near as strong as it is now, and a lot of the changes that have happened in spell check you're probably not aware of because they're what we call under the hood changes. All right, so when a student uses spell check, or spell check on an older version of Office, it typically shows a list of spelling suggestions when you right click or tap a flagged word. Now, there's several different reasons why people with a challenge like dyslexia, for example, have difficulty selecting a correctly spelled word from that list. Firstly, they have difficulty perceiving the differences and determining which is correct in a list of similarly spelled words. All right, so this can be due to visual attention challenges, challenge remembering spelling rules, absence of visual memory tracing the correctly spelled word, etc. And so it didn't help us that Office spelling menus have shown the suggestions themselves without any context to help choose the right word. Secondly, having too many choices slows decision making and causes what we call decision fatigue. And this applies to everybody, but it's especially true for young writers who have more difficulty with reading speed and accuracy and a slower processing time. And thirdly, unique spelling error patterns can cause words to look very different from the intended word. So historically, Office spell checkers have optimized words to show a smaller number of highly likely suggestions for the most common error patterns. Therefore, it often didn't have suggestions for unusual patterns such as these. So what we've got now, and I'm going to give you a bit of a demo. I'm going to show this to you in the, first of all, in Windows 10, Word for Windows 10. Let me just open that up. So this is the fully installed. This is not the, so it's the desktop version. This is not the web version. And I'm just going to grab that here. And I just need to open up my document. Excuse me, I should have done this earlier, but I didn't. My fault. Sorry about this. Okay, so sorry. This is in dark mode. I like very much using dark mode when I use my tools. So hopefully you guys can see that. But here we see here we see a document, and it's, you know, like most of us are using Word, we can see, hopefully you guys can see that we've got the little red squiggles underneath, which is telling us that we've got spelling errors. All right. So what happens is when I right click, the word principal here is misspelled, right? When I right click it, what used to happen was I would get a drop down like this. Okay, I would get a drop down like this, and I get a group of suggestions. And for some challenges, that's pretty useless. All right, it doesn't actually do much for the student. But now what happens is when I right click, okay, hopefully you guys can see that, and apologies if you can't. But what's happening there is I've got a group of suggestions. So I've got principal, principal, and principals. Okay, but underneath every one of them is a series of 3 synonyms. Okay, so it's trying to give me some help in suggesting which one is the correct one. So we've chosen to show synonyms as opposed to definitions or usage samples because they're the most efficient at the level of reading, right? So the fewer words are required to convey enough information to make a decision. And of course, less text will help students, for example, because visual crowding, that is more text and impaired visual search, would be less of an issue. We've also improved the spelling suggestions themselves. We're leveraging an online spell check. So if we're connected to the internet, we're accessing a much larger language model and phonetic spelling component, which is going to give us better suggestions, right? But the other thing that we've done is we've actually open up read aloud, right? So when I right click, I've got my, when I right click, I've got my suggestions, but if I'm challenged by text, that's not going to help me much. So I've got this little arrow over here, and I've got a read aloud button, which will read that suggestion to me.
Principle, similar to code, source, rule.
Can I just get a show of thumbs or something? Did everyone hear that? Yep, cool, okay. Apologies. Okay, so I hover over, I can see it, I've got my suggestions there, I've got my synonyms, but I can also hear it.
Principal, similar to main, leader, superintendent.
Okay, so I'd click on that and then that would change that for me in there. So the other thing that we've done is we've built what's called Editor, okay, which is spell check basically on steroids, okay, and I'm just going to come into the Home tab here, and you can see Editor lives over here, all right, and so I'm showing you this in the Windows 10 app. I click on Editor, and what it does, and I'm sorry if it's a bit hard to see, but we've actually got other things highlighted here now, not just the spelling. Okay, an editor sits out here. The first thing it does is it gives me an editor score, okay, which is based on the number and type of suggestions and also the document length. But I can choose whether I want it to assess this as a formal piece of writing, a professional piece of writing, or a casual piece of writing, right? So it will give me different suggestions based on the different kind of document that it is. We've got spelling over here. Now, before what I showed you is I would right click and I get it, the drop down inside the text, but that can be quite daunting to some students because there's too much going on the page. So what we've done is we've made it able to be pulled outside of the text. All right. So again, what I've done is I've come over here, I'm clicking on my spelling first, and then what it's done, sorry again if this is a bit hard to see, but it's actually pulled the entire sentence out with the error in the context, but I can hear the entire sentence if I push this one here. Have a listen.
They are about 30 to 33 centimeters. Tree octopus are amphibious.
Okay, so it's showing me that I've got these errors there and I can hear them. And I can also hear my suggestions.
Octopus, similar to devilfish, devilfishes.
I can also get it to spell out.
OCTOPUS. OCTOPUS.
All right, so it'll do those kinds of suggestions in there as well. Now I've also got grammar. These are the ones, the corrections are things that must be changed. So I click on grammar, and what it does is it highlights it inside the the document, but it's still pulled outside and I can listen.
I wishing I could have one as a pet.
All right, so I can hear the error rather than just see it. And it's suggesting there that I change it to am wishing or wish. All right, and I can also listen to those.
Am space wishing.
Or I can have that spelled out to me.
AM space WISHING.
Okay, so again, what would have been done once upon a time by the aid is now being done by the technology. Now, the other thing that we've got is we've got things like clarity and conciseness and formality and inclusive language, etc. That's all in there and able to be changed and able to be set up. We've also got a basic similarity checker. Okay, so it's like a little plagiarism checker, so it'll check other things online and see if the student has actually plagiarized this. But let's go into conciseness, okay? And let's see, it's saying more concise language would be clearer for your reader. So at the moment it says this.
They'd be really, really fun, I bet.
And instead it's saying I should change that to they'd be fun. All right, so making that more concise. Now you see the little settings wheel down here. That's where I, as a teacher, can go in and turn things on and off. All right, so there's a lot there, and sorry if it's a bit hard to see, but colloquial verb phrases, number formattings, etc. So you as a teacher can go in and switch that off for the student so they're not being overburdened by suggestions and they're only focusing on what it is that they want to focus on. The other thing that's important to note is it's categorized. So instead of going linear through the document, going spelling, grammar, conciseness, spelling, grammar, you can actually go through each section that you want, switching off the things that you don't want. All right, so that's what that looks like inside Windows 10. Now hold a moment, I'm going to turn my heater on because all of a sudden it's very cold here in Melbourne. And I want to show you what this looks like in the online version, because in the online version, it's different again. So I'm going to open up my document. Oh, excuse me, it's probably easier if I a few more files. Sorry about this. It's like on MasterChef. Here's one we prepared earlier. Actually, I don't watch MasterChef. I don't know if they even say that. Let's go in here into demo tools, open up our octopus article. Here we go. All right, so here's our little octopus one again. And I'm just going to show you, this is in the browser version. Rosemary, did you have a question? I just saw your hand was raised.
Oh, sorry, yes, I did. Just with the feedback on editor, listening to it, it's quite fast. Can that be slowed down?
No, unfortunately you can't. Yeah, so you just have to play it over and over.
Yeah. Okay.
But I share that. I think that's something that we could give some feedback about. Brett, you have a question? No worries, Rosemary. Thanks for that great question.
Yeah, just adding on to that, is there any way they can request the phoneme sounds rather than the alphabet names?
Not at the moment. But Reading Progress is going to be adding some phonemic awareness stuff, and I haven't seen it yet, but I'm told that it'll be there. So hopefully that's going to come out as part of Reading Progress. Great question. All right, so here I am in my document inside Word in the browser. Okay, so this is the online version, and we've got Editor. Now, I just want to point out Editor acts a little bit different. Okay, we still have an editor score. Okay, and we can still set the formal, professional, or casual writing. All right, we've got spelling and grammar. Okay, again, it's going to bring it inside the document this time rather than outside. And also, we haven't got our synonyms. Okay, so if you're wanting that synonym aspect, that's really important. Please use the full version rather than the one inside here. We do have our refinements though. Okay, they're all inside there. And we've also got the similarity checker. Okay, we've also got text predictions. So as I type, it will actually give me predictions as I go. So let's have a look at this. The but it's of course not going to demo for me now, but the text predictions do work. But this is what I like, the document stats under the Insights tab, right? So when I click on this, what it does is it shows me how many, before we'd have to go into review and word check and all this, word count, blah, blah, blah. It does it all for you on this nice little screen here. So how many words, how many characters, how many paragraphs, which is nice. How long is it going to take for someone to read this on average? And how long does it take to speak it, right? But we've also got a Flesch-Kincaid readability score, which is nice, right? So what that shows is that's showing me that it's giving me a score of 78. It's fairly easy to read, and it will also give me a grade level. So this is saying it's about a 7th grade reading level for this article. All right, and it's also giving me a point score, so it's saying you've got 15 suggestions, so students can actually look at this and go, hey, I got less this time or I got more this time, and they can track their own changes as well. Your top corrections, that's brand new, hot off the presses, so let's have a look. It's showing over the last 14, 7, 28 days what your top corrections are. So it's going to tell you, spelling is very common, or grammar, or, whatever, conciseness or whatever. So you can go back and have a look at how you've progressed over that time and what you seem to be coming back to again and again, which is really important. All right. So that's what it looks like in that space. So what we've done with Editor is we've made it the kind of tool that is going to give students support that once upon a time was done by the aide or by the teacher. Instead, the technology is giving them that support. So it's not only in the device, but it's also in the browser. Look at that, we've got 15 minutes to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to have a look through the slides at a later stage. Okay, because there's a whole lot more in there around, or there's a few more things in there around literacy that I invite you to go and have a look. And there's also some reflection points in there too. What I'm going to do though, in terms of the speaking and listening, again, I'm going to invite you to go in and have a look at what's available. But I will just quickly show you one video that I think is actually quite powerful. And it's the way that we can use the Microsoft Translator tools with the deaf. All right. So if I can get someone to give me a thumbs up or whatever, let me know if you haven't got any sound, or come off mute and let me know if you haven't got any sound when we start this. And there's no sound yet, so it's okay.
Where I lived, they believe that deaf people can't do anything, so it was very, very difficult. I came to RIT because of the communication access that's provided here.
RIT has 9 different colleges, and NTID, the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, is one of those 9 colleges. We are the world's largest mainstream program for deaf and hard of hearing people. We have the world's largest interpreting services, as well as the captioning group. It's the largest, but we still cannot keep up with the growth and the need for access services. So we decided to use Microsoft Translator as an additional communication tool, which can help RIT on its journey to scale.
Microsoft Translator uses AI to provide another really strong bridge for the gap that has been there so long.
As a deaf person, I want the exact same information that my hearing friends have.
Education is all about communication, so you have to level the communication field, and then the learning occurs.
Working with Microsoft Cognitive Services, it was a fantastic experience. They were so motivated to work with us. It's like we jumped into the future. Presentation Translator was easier than we thought it would be. You really just have to click it, and the software automatically reads the content and everything that you have within the PowerPoint system. The custom speech recognition is critical for capturing vocabulary words that wouldn't necessarily be conventional in everyday life. For example, the terminology that you would see in a biology class.
Malleus, hammer, incus, anvil, stapes, stirrup.
We were able to feed key words into the classroom models.
So the system is, quote, learning as it goes, and the accuracy has improved tremendously.
Students can pick any language that they choose to receive the information. If the professor has chosen English, which they speak, then I can choose whatever language I learn in best.
Sometimes I would miss information before because either my mind would drift or I'd think something else for a minute. So now that I have my phone, I can see exactly what was said, so I can continue with the classroom and keep up. And that's been a huge help to me.
Students can use the app to initiate a conversation with others, or they can join a conversation that's already taking place.
Once I knew about the Microsoft Translator, I realized I can use that back at home during family dinners. And then I also can use it for study groups with my friends. In the future, I can also use it for my job because communication is very important for all of us and we just want to be together and not feel left out.
Do you guys play any video games?
I grew up as a deaf person. I know what those barriers feel like. So when I see communication happening, access happening, it's amazing.
If everyone had the technology that we do here, I know that deaf people in other countries would be able to succeed and go to college.
There are barriers to communication everywhere, but I think it's time we look at the barriers as opportunities, and then they can be broken down. Microsoft Translator has the ability to provide opportunities to reach out to everyone.
Okay, so I just want to encourage you when you get these, please, do a bit of a dive. There's so much. You can see how much I've got. I've got some stuff around math support, which is in there, but there's videos and there's some walkthroughs and other bits and pieces, so you can see it in action. So you don't have to miss out. Inside Speaking and Listening, we've got some links and other things to videos, etc. Around that PowerPoint, around that translator with PowerPoint that you just saw a moment ago, Adelaide High have a deafness program and they are doing some phenomenal stuff with this. And then also Adelaide High with their EAL program are doing some amazing stuff in this space. So by all means, reach out to Adelaide High if you're interested. Visit their website and reach out to them and they'll let you know what they're doing in that space. It's actually very, very cool. All right, so we are on the home stretch. We've only got 10 minutes. So what I want to do really quickly is I just want to show you, remember we looked at that universal design for learning stuff, right? Here's some of the things that we've covered today that the technology can support you with around the universal design for learning criteria, things that you don't necessarily have to focus on, but the technology will help you meet a lot of those points. All right, remember these ones were the cultural ones. These are the more specific ones, and we're covering, well over 50% of them, right? Probably 2/3 of them are actually handled by the technology. So just coming back to the idea of personalization as opposed to differentiation using the technology is really very, very key. All right, when we look at a document like this, we can see that Microsoft is way ahead of the Google Classroom space, all right, in terms of this accessibility features that we have, some of which you've seen today, some of which you haven't, but nevertheless, we are light years ahead. So if it's about equity and including everybody, we want to be inside 365 and inside Teams before we want to be in something like Google Classroom. The other thing that I've got here is the research information for you. You can jump in and have a look at that. I want to also let you know that my videos where I do a much deeper dive than we've done today. So you can go to aka.ms/TroyYT or Troy YouTube. My kids hate the fact that I have my own YouTube channel, my own kids, but nevertheless, I've built videos for you to go in and do a deeper dive, right? And you can share these with your colleagues from school. You can go back and, do it at your own pace. Please jump in and have a look at that, all right? The other thing that we've got, remembering, is the Microsoft Educator Center, so you can do those online courses at your own pace. I promise you they're great. They will hit everybody except for New South Wales for teacher PD and for PD that's required for your teacher registration board. Another website for you, aka.ms/MEC accessibility, is everything. It says remote learning, but it's actually much broader. It's also face-to-face. There's all our education resources. This is a great launching page and landing page around accessibility. So please, when you grab these slides, go in and have a look in your own time. I've also got a link to another web page just down here. It's a Sway, which is all about accessibility and focusing around education and how the Microsoft tools can be used in the education space. There's that immersive reader link again, so you can get in and look at that. inclusive writing tools. There is a demo, a walkthrough that you can have a look at and share with your colleagues. The math tools as well, which we didn't get a chance to go into today, but you can 100% jump in and see some really good demos of that. Mike Tholfsen, I'm sorry, I know I'm talking fast, but I just need to make sure you guys understand that this is all here. Mike Tholfsen has a series of short, sharp, quick bite videos. Now mine are full length, 1 hour, an hour and a half, 45-minute deep dives. Mike gives you little clips, okay? Here's how to turn this on. Here's how to use this. Here's how to do that, all right? And they're very short and sharp. So if you want the long ones, go to my videos. If you want the short, sharp ones, which are great for sharing with staff, jump in there. There's a link directly to that inclusive classroom specialization one that we talked about before on the Educator Center. We have a series of workshops that you can run with your staff. We have built the resources and everything that you need to train yourself, to train your staff, all right? So this is presenter-led training, and everything that you need is in these kits. So when you come to these links, you can click on those and it will take you to these. So we've got mobile tools, literacy tools, interactive instructional tools, those videos there. Now, the other thing that we built, and I now have that jumper, by the way. I realized when I watched this video the other day, I saw my own jumper. Got it from Uniqlo. Quite proud of it. Wearing the purple one today, same one. What we've done is we've built, did I overshare? Sorry about that. We've built a parent information session for you, right? So it's great, you can show the kids, but how do you train the parents around using this at home? If you go to this link here, aka.ms/ICPK or Inclusive Classroom Parent Kit, you can download detailed instruction scripts, PowerPoint decks, links to videos and resources, handouts, everything that you need, okay? We've got scripts inside there, so it's telling you to do this, set this up, now you can say this, etc. Everything that you need, you can't mess it up, including handouts, etc. And you can run this digitally, all right, across the internet, or you can have the parents in, face-to-face, and you can run this and train them around things like Immersive Reader and Dictate and some of the things that you've seen today. Okay, so that's aka.ms/ICPK. When you get these slides, 100% you'll be able to click on those links and download that. Another few links for you to go in and explore. One in particular is the Disability Answers Desk, which is a 1-800 number that you can ring. You'll have a real person on the end and you can ask them your accessibility questions. It's not a help desk. It's not where you ring them and say, oh, I can't get this to open, or why is my computer doing that? It's about how to use specific accessibility tools in Microsoft, real person on the end of that call. So that link is live for you. We've also got the Microsoft Accessibility YouTube channel, which is absolutely brilliant as well. Now, I want you to think about this. We certainly don't have time for you to do this, but at least personally, I'm hoping that you can do this and think to yourself, how are you going to apply what you learned in school today? What you learned today back in your school? Because if we don't have a purpose, it'll just become one of these other PDs that we just forget about things. All right. All right. Lastly, okay, or at least almost lastly, I want you to get your code. Okay, and I want you to put in your code at education.microsoft.com. Once you've set up your account, okay, then you sign in, click redeem achievement code, put this code in, T-TWC57771, put that in, and you will be given the recognition for a full day's PD with me today inside your account here in the Microsoft Educator Center. This code is inside these slides. So when you download the slides, that code will be waiting for you. You can punch that in, okay? But what I might do is just to make it a little bit easier, I might just throw that quickly in the chat. So just give me a moment, and we're nearly there, folks, nearly at the end of our day. I'm just going to grab that code and that website information. I'll just put that in the chat in case you don't get to the slides. Just let that load up. And nice and big. So education.microsoft.com, set up your account, put in that code T-TWC, etc., and then you'll be able to get the recognition. Now, finally, we're at the end of the day. stay connected with me. Now, the best way to do that is through social media, okay? And these are professional accounts, all right? So if you connect with me through Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook, you're not going to see photos of my kids or cats or anything like that. I get the latest, I'm privy to the latest updates, the latest information, case studies, information around accessibility with technology in the education space. I will 100% push that out. So you don't have to find it. It will just start to appear in your feed because you're following me. All right. So I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook. Just do a search for Troy Waller. You know it's me because you'll see this handsome old dude over here. That's how you know it's me and not some other Troy Waller. Okay, now on that note, I'm going to stop the recording